Greetings and salutations. I'm the fallen angel Christopher Daniels.
Hello, yes, Danhausen here to tell you, deliver a very nice, very evil message, if you will.
This is NXT superstar Dexter Lumis.
What's up, everybody? It's me, your buddy, your pal, Scott Stanford.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
This is the former intellectual savior of the masses, now known as Aaron Stevens, your NWA third-degree national champion.
This is Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, the role model, and you are listening to Greg Morgan with Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And I want to tell you, Greg, your buddy Howie, also known as Wheezy, as you call him, he told me all about your channel. I'm here to tell everybody that I've seen it, I've watched it, I've looked at it. I went down the rabbit hole and I couldn't get out of it. It was so good.
Yeah, you better watch this channel. You better watch all the videos.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
Watch them 5 times a piece. That's right, I said 5 times a piece. Do it.
I know you've been a fan for like 40 years. I've only been doing it for 30, so I guess we're fans together there for 10 of it.
Do it.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Do it.
Good Mic Work is the place to be for all your wrestling information, guaranteed.
The best wrestling content is right here at Good Mic Work Commentary.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
Subscribe, share, love, like, poke, whatever you need to do.
If you don't, we're gonna have a problem.
Love that, Danhausen. Love that Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Do it now.
You're welcome.
We are just a little bit over 24 hours away from Survivor Series 2020. What's going on, everyone? And welcome to your November 21st. I almost forgot which month it is. 2020 edition of the Winged Eagle podcast. We are here to talk about a really awesome week in wrestling, and this is going to be a fun episode because we have to predict tomorrow night's pay-per-view. And right now, as I look at this card on paper, I think it's going to be a really fun show tomorrow night. And I think if, when it comes to big 5 pay-per-view weekends, those are always fun. And I'm determined to make this a lot of fun here on the channel. And we're going to talk extensively about tomorrow's pay-per-view and what can potentially go down in the outcome of some of these matches and what they can do storyline-wise. And as, of course, and as it all ties in with the 30-year anniversary of the greatest gimmick in the history of the WWE, the Gobbledygooker, which debuted on November 22nd, 1990. So we'll talk all about that and see what kind of big tributes the WWE has planned for the Gooker tomorrow night. But either way, I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it. I think when you consider, when you look at the top 5 pay-per-views, if you consider Money in the Bank a top 5 pay-per-view, I personally do now. I think it's reached that point. I think Survivor Series usually every year is the weakest of the 5, but I think tomorrow night's got potential, and that's saying something coming from a guy that has never really been into the Raw versus SmackDown thing. At Survivor Series, brand supremacy doesn't mean jack shit to me, and it certainly shouldn't mean anything to the wrestlers, but sometimes it can really provide you with some interesting matchups, and I'm almost now looking at the whole situation after what we saw on SmackDown last night. I'm glad they made the switch back to Drew McIntyre and we're getting this Roman and Drew match tomorrow because I have high hopes for it, and I have high hopes for the whole card. So this is kicking off your first of 3 straight nights in a row of streaming. We'll be up here tomorrow night as well, immediately following Survivor Series for our full show review, and I'll be up here Monday night as well to discuss the post-Survivor Series Raw. So you're going to get a whole lot of me in the next 72 hours. Hope you guys are doing okay. I can be heard, correct? All right, we're looking good over there. I'll bust out all these super chats in a minute here. I'm also going to let you guys know what's on the menu today in terms of other topics we're going to discuss. We've got a good amount of wrestling news to get into as well. Plus, we'll talk a little bit about this past Wednesday night's Dynamite and NXT. We'll gloss over last night's SmackDown, talk about, the contract signing and a couple of the key moments there. Otherwise, not much to talk about because the pay-per-view is tomorrow. And then we will finish things up with my full Survivor Series predictions. right before I went live, I was really struggling with some of these matches, and I had to, kind of organize it all in my head. I'm like, okay, well, if this team wins this, then the other team can't win. And if this show wins this match, then they really shouldn't win this match. And having to put all that together and come up with my final predictions, I will let you know how many wins and losses each brand has. I've got Raw picking up 3 matches and SmackDown picking up 3 matches on the main card, and I'm giving the nod to SmackDown in the pre-show Battle Royal. So if you want to find out who's going to win what, just stay tuned to the end of this podcast, and we'll be getting into the full Survivor Series predictions. I don't expect this episode to go any more than 90 minutes today. We'll probably wrap it up then. If I can finish this episode in an hour and a half, I'll have the audio up immediately. If we run 2 hours or more, then the audio on the website and all the podcast sites will be up later on tonight. So just keep that in mind. I also want to let you guys know about a couple of scheduling and upcoming videos on the schedule for the channel. If you didn't see it earlier this week, I released kind of a brief review, just a 45-minute review, running through pretty briefly all of the Undertaker's matches at Survivor Series. It was a really fun little mini review to do, a little mini pod, I called it, and we talked about every single match he's ever had. I believe his record we figured out was 13-5, even though I think I had it 12-6 on the video, and we talked about each and every match, what was special about it, what it meant, and how it measured up in the grand scheme of things to the Undertaker's entire career and his legacy at Survivor Series. So if you haven't seen that video, please check it out. It's on the channel right now. Over Thanksgiving weekend, I will be releasing a Beyond the Mat review. This is a Patreon-sponsored review. It's been a movie. It's been a subject that I've wanted to cover for a long time on the channel. I don't think we've ever really gotten around to it, other than maybe talking about it in Q&As or random live streams or something like that. We've touched on Beyond the Mat before, but in terms of a full-blown review, never done one. So that's coming up Thanksgiving weekend. For those of you here in the States who celebrate Thanksgiving, should be a nice vacation podcast to listen to. And our buddy Barry, who I believe is in the chat right now, our mod from Hawaii, has also sponsored an upcoming video that you're going to get in the very beginning of December on, get this, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag, Barry, sorry, Divas Undressed from 2002, that wacky-ass fashion show that they did, which after going back and watching 5 minutes of it last night, does not age well. So if you're interested to hear my thoughts on that debacle, stay tuned to the channel, because early December I'll be releasing that review as well. I think Barry is some kind of a masochist or something. By the way, head over to Barry MK's YouTube channel right now and give him a subscribe. And if you check his channel, you'll see a playlist over there of every video that he's sponsored that I've done for him throughout the years. And there's got to be, 8 to 10 of them on there, I think. So he's done a lot here for the channel. So if you want to watch the full playlist, head over to Barry's channel and you can check all of that out over there. So that's really the only thing on tap schedule-wise. I ran through this weekend and let you know what to expect next week and the beginning of December. I want to do a quick shout-out to all of our current patrons as well, the people that really keep this channel rolling on a monthly basis. I want to shout out new Patreon supporter Martin Can, just came in, I believe, the other day. Alex Dredge, Apron Bump Podcast, Alan Carter, Brandon Yelverton, Michael Tong, Nick Musser, Jimmy Anderson, K-Dogs Kennel, Ryan Y, and Devlin Husband, John Redifer, Claudio Claviditzger, Jordan Karg, Daniel Rodriguez, Barry, once again, Reese Jones is back, Josiah Blevins, Mr. Steve, Scott Moss, Domanian Ewell, John Riffle, Michael Cuomo, Naveed, Keith Salyers, Nathan Walker, Alex Reynolds, Blake Moran. Thanks, guys, for all that you do. If you pledge $10 or more a month or $200 or more lifetime, you are also shouted out in the description below as one of the top benefactors of the channel. So I appreciate everyone's support. As always, we have a lot to cover here. So let's start getting into the news. Well, actually, because there's a chunk of them here, let's bust out these super chats first. Then we're going to jump into the news. And what we're going to start with is the announcement of WWE moving the Thunderdome to Tropicana Field on December 11th. We'll open up with that. We'll talk about Renee's pregnancy. We'll talk about The Undertaker on TikTok and Cameo. A little bit more on Zelina Vega. Some internal news with WWE releasing an executive and settling a lawsuit, and a Wipeout contestant passed away. So that's kind of on the news tap here once I bust out these supers. George Morris, Mr. 0 out of 10. Good to see you, man, and thank you for the $5. Hey, Greg, how are you doing? I just got off putting in a 72-hour week between both jobs. Looking forward to listening to your podcast and Sunday off. I am really happy you are off tomorrow if you're busting out 72 hours in a week. Didn't you tell us the same thing? in a recent super chat on a stream. You work your ass off. But yeah, we're going to have fun tomorrow. I think tomorrow's going to be a good pay-per-view, and I'm really looking forward to doing the review to see how I measure up in my predictions. I really went back and forth on a lot of these matches, but I think I've got a really good chance to do well on my predictions for tomorrow. Excuse me. Stone Cold, what's going on, man? Appreciate the $2 as well. Good to be back. I was getting married last Saturday. What is wrong with you, dude? You had to get married on a Saturday when you know I do these podcasts? Huh. I guess I'm going to block you. I mean, you would think that you and your wife would be more considerate and maybe try to get married on like a Wednesday or maybe a Thursday morning after breakfast or something, but no, you got to pick Saturday. I'm kidding, man. Congratulations, dude. And that is very awesome. As a matter of fact, wasn't I not even up here last Saturday? Wasn't that the week that I had to postpone it because of the wedding that I had to cater? Was it yours? Were you the guy that left me all that money? Anyway, dude, congratulations and welcome back. Glad you're here. And we'll make it a fun weekend just for you as a wedding present to you. Hey, We Are Pro Wrestling. What's up? Yes, hashtag Gooker30. Or is it Gooker or Gooker? I know back in the day, Gorilla Monsoon and the announcers were calling him Gobbly Gooker, and then years later it was Gooker. I don't know what it is. But yeah, what a gimmick, man. I remember that egg. Oh, wow. 30 years. I was such a little snot back then. Antoine Fair, good to see you. Welcome back as well. Thanks for the $2. Let's go head-to-head on Pick Bro. What's up? Yeah, we can if you want. I'm pretty confident about my picks. Stay tuned. I'm going to let you all in on everything. How Wheezy. Good to see you back, man. And thanks for being here. As always, reminder, you're supposed to freestyle for my birthday. That's right. Is that today? Freestyle rap? Oh, shit. I am not prepared, How Wheezy. I am not prepared. Steven Scott, you're here as well. Appreciate the $10, brother. Non-wrestling question. What do you think about the Lakers signing Montrezl Harrell from the Clippers and favorite Survivor Series title change, 95 or 96? 96 was awesome with Sid. I remember watching that right in my living room, but man, 95 is Brett. Come on. I got to go 95, even though probably the more casual fan who doesn't have any sort of like bias towards Bret Hart might pick 96 because that MSG moment was quite awesome. You know, it was really the first glimpse, well, sort of. It was really the first glimpse of baby faces being rejected in smart towns. You might have saw a little bit of that in 95 in Philly at the King of the Ring and stuff, but that was a big deal. Super, super big deal. Barry, this is the best idea I've ever had. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be interesting to watch it because just watching the way, and plus you got Jerry Lawler out there on commentary during that Divas thing, so you know he's a moron. So just everything they were saying was just like making me cringe. So Barry's going to put me through hell to watch 45 minutes of cringe and then review the son of a bitch. But the thumbnail is likely to have a very sexy diva on it, so I think it might get some views. So Barry might be helping out the channel after all, even though I'm going to be shaking my head a lot, I think, in that 45 minutes watching that. Anywho, that busts out the super chats for right now. Let's jump into the wrestling news so we can start getting down to real good business here. WWE has announced that they are moving the Thunderdome. We knew this was going to happen because they're currently in the Amway Center in Orlando, and the NBA season is about to kick off here right before Christmas time. So the Orlando Magic is going to need their building back, and you knew they were going to have to get the hell out of there. So they decided to move it to Tropicana Field, which is where the Tampa Bay Devil Rays play, where they play baseball, correct? So the only thing about this is that, you know, again, they're probably looking at a short-term type of deal here because I don't know if baseball's changing their schedule at all. I assume they're going to be starting up as normal, spring training, shit like that. So they've probably got until March or April to have, have this venue for the Thunderdome. My question is, where do they go after that? Because after baseball starts, assuming it starts up as planned, basketball isn't going to be done yet. So, I don't know. I'm sure WWE will figure something out. It's Florida. You can do whatever the hell you want down there. They might just have to find another venue, another arena to set up the Thunderdome. It probably won't be hard, but it makes me wonder where they are going to be because I certainly don't think by the time we get to March or April, they're going to be back on the road traveling again. It's still going to have to be this type of, pandemic setup. So I think they're probably going to have to move it one more time before maybe things start changing. I don't know. That's my guess. But I'm assuming we probably won't notice any difference, even though Tropicana Field is huge. I highly doubt. I suppose they could. It would look awesome. But could you imagine like a baseball stadium-sized Thunderdome? Right now it's very, compact and very concentrated. I think it would be way too much to have that many LED screens around an entire baseball stadium. So I'm assuming they're going to shrink this down, tarp it off, and you're probably not even going to notice that they're in a baseball stadium at all. But that's interesting. That kicks off Friday, December 11th on SmackDown. Will be the first show from Tropicana Field. We want to give a big shout out to Renee Paquette and Jon Moxley. Moxley, in the middle of a really intense promo, which we'll talk about here in a little bit on Dynamite on Wednesday, just casually mentions that he's got a pregnant wife at home. And it's not like his wife is just any old Jane Doe who nobody knows. It's Renee Young, previously in WWE. Everybody knows and adores Renee Young. And for him to announce that she was pregnant like that in the middle of a promo was pretty interesting. And it just, Twitter just got flooded with well wishes to the couple and well wishes to Renee. And a pretty interesting way of Moxley letting that slip there. But congrats to him, man. All 3 Shield members becoming a father in the last year. That's amazing. So good for Renee. And we wish them the best. Seth Rollins, incidentally, as we'll also talk about here in a minute, is about to take time off as well because Becky, I think her bun is nearly done, and he's going to be off TV for a while to welcome the little beast slayer into the world. We got to talk about this Undertaker news. I just find it comical. So the Undertaker is now on TikTok, which I just laugh because Undertaker's got about as much business being on TikTok as I do. And he's also on Cameo. Now, he was on Cameo for only a limited amount of cameos, 30 of them, and get this, $1,000 a pop. Took him 1 day to sell out of those. 1 day. I think they're gone, all of them. Last I checked, there was 2 left, but I think it's probably gone now. That's crazy. He only allowed 30 of them, and he made $30,000 for what? 30 minutes worth of cameos? How long do you do those for? A minute or something? He probably did 30 minutes of work, made 30 G's. Wow. And he's also on TikTok, released his very first TikTok of Michelle sitting down with an Undertaker mask on or something, and he turns the light on and something weird. So that is just completely funny to me. I have no problem with it, no issue with it. The only issue I do take with it is that, he's on TikTok and Cameo, and I'm sure WWE is getting their cut, but then you got somebody like Zelina Vega who was fired for not shutting down her Twitch channel and shit like that. So it's this fucking company, but it's The Undertaker. Like I said, The Undertaker is this generation's Andre the Giant. In a lot of ways, I think he's even eclipsed Andre in terms of like what he means from a locker room perspective, where Andre was respected and feared, and you tiptoed around him and only approached him in the right situation, where Taker is the opposite. He's very approachable. He loves to give advice. He loves to talk to people, loves to help people. And, in a lot of ways, I think he's an even better type of locker room godfather, than Andre. Than the scary motherfucker sitting there playing cards. Undertaker's a guy that's there to teach. And in a lot of ways, I've always compared the two a lot in that respect. So considering, that level of star that The Undertaker became and the respect that he commands, he can do whatever the fuck he wants. If he wants to dance to ABBA's Dancing Queen in a thong on his kitchen table on TikTok, have at it, dead man. You've earned it. Whatevs. But I find it really funny that he's on TikTok. WWE spent 30 years protecting this gimmick like no other, to the point where even as recent as a year ago on this very podcast, I would say things like, speculating about The Undertaker's Hall of Fame induction. I would say things like, what do you think it's going to be like? First of all, The Undertaker's never even appeared at the Hall of Fame before, aside from that Paul Bearer cameo, and he came out in full costume. He's never been seen in the crowd. He's never down in the front row sitting next to Hulk Hogan or Steve Austin or Vince McMahon or Triple H or anybody like that. He's nowhere to be found. And, aside from that little hiccup he had as the American Badass, we never really got to see Mark Calloway as Mark Calloway. And so I've always speculated when he goes into the Hall of Fame, what kind of Undertaker are we going to see? Like, certainly he's not going to go into the Hall of Fame in full Undertaker costume and gimmick. This needs to be his time to speak to us as fans, from him, coming from him and who he is and that sort of thing. And I always wondered how they were going to get to that point. And here in just a year's time, less than a year's time from, like the Boneyard match up until now, they've completely humanized The Undertaker, where, they did the Last Ride documentary. He was kind of more back to his American Badass self in his final Boneyard match with AJ Styles. And then all of the network stuff that they've done, the Brothers of Destruction documentary on the network right now that was released a couple days ago. Did you guys see that? That's great shit. Sit down deal with Kane or with Glenn and Undertaker, and it was a great shit. So all of this stuff that they're doing with him is basically undoing, I feel like, in such a short amount of time, what they spent 30 years protecting. So on one half of me is just shocked that they're taking it to this level, and Undertaker's got a goddamn TikTok app, on his phone now. But on the other hand, it would have been tough for him just to remain the dead man all the way up until going to the Hall of Fame. He needs to have that personal connection with the audience. So now that he's kind of done, he's able to come out and talk about a lot of his career. And, in the end, I'm okay with it, but it doesn't make it any less weird, that the idea of this in 2017 would have blown my fucking mind. You know what I mean? So anyway, I found that stuff to be interesting about The Undertaker. Hopefully he'll be releasing some more cameos. So if you want to slap down $1,000 to get a message from the dead man, you can do that. Speaking of cameo and TikTok and shit like that, a little bit more on Zelina Vega that I read just kind of randomly this week. Throughout the week, she was, of course, let go last Friday prior to SmackDown. Apparently, she was at the building when she was released, which I didn't know. So I'm not sure if she tweeted out that I support unionization right there from the locker room, and then they announced her release there on Twitter, or if all of this happened and then she was already home and she tweeted that unionization thing, and that's when WWE also released the statement on her release or whatever. So, but apparently she was told at the arena, she was escorted out of the arena, even requested to meet with Vince McMahon and talk to him, and he said he didn't want to talk to her. So apparently he was just pretty pissed off at her for, being very vocal and, refusing and standing her ground and not shutting down her channel. And good for her, man. I'm so glad she's out from under that rock. She hasn't talked in depth about it, but she has released a couple of statements, said a couple of things here and there, how it was a really rough day for her, worst day of her life since 2001. Of course, her father perished in the 9/11 attacks, and she said it was the worst day of her life since then. So that's got to be pretty bad. But in the end, I really think, truly in my heart of hearts, that she's going to wind up just fine, and she's going to realize that she's much better off, and she can make all the money in the world she wants now off of her, off of her other interests and her platforms, and she can still find work in wrestling without a problem. Impact or AEW would pick her up in a half a second, and Zelina is going to be just fine. But some of those additional details were kind of interesting regarding her release. WWE's also released John Brody. He was the executive vice president, global head of sales and partnerships, and head of international. Heard his name a couple of times, but really don't know much about him other than that. He was let go, and that was a pretty big move, apparently, because he has been there a while. And also, WWE settled a class action lawsuit for like $39 million over their misleading and misrepresenting their relationship with Saudi Arabia, and some weird deal there. I think they saw that was a losing proposition, so they just settled, and Vince dropped $40 million, and my heart just bleeds for him. And in another weird piece of news that was making the wrestling net news sites, because John Cena is hosting the show, they had a taping of Wipeout. They're filming a resurrection of the Wipeout show that's going to be coming out sometime. Nobody knows when. And apparently a contestant died there last week after competing. I don't think he died suffering like an injury. I don't think. He completed the course and then collapsed and then died later at the hospital or something. So it was either a heart attack, something brought on by the obstacle course or whatever. But that's scary. And that sucks because, a show that's so lighthearted and fun like that now has got to have a death hanging over it. I'm not sure if they'll maybe postpone the release of the show or maybe not go through with it at all. I don't know there, but excuse me. Thought that was worth mentioning because of the whole John Cena deal. That pretty much wraps it up for the only news I wanted to talk about. Just wanted to mention those several things before we got into some wrestling results. Not going to talk about this past Monday night's Raw. We talked about it a lot on Monday. If you want to hear my thoughts on that, you can go back and check it out. We saw Drew McIntyre, of course, beat Randy Orton for the WWE title, setting up his match now with Roman Reigns at Survivor Series. We'll talk a little bit about last night's SmackDown here in a bit, but other than that, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that because we got the pay-per-view tomorrow. But we will run through a bit of AEW and NXT because I thought both shows were really good. Let me knock out 2 more super chats, and then we'll do that. I'm sorry, 4 more. Yeah, 4 more. Another one. Hey, Jimmy Anderson, welcome back. Good evening to you, man, from way on the other side of the globe. Good evening, Greg, and everyone in the chat. Hope you are doing well, Jimmy, and I hope you're able to join us tomorrow night for the Survivor Series review. Should be fun. Antoine, what's up, man? Thanks for the 5. I'm in Tampa. We fine people for calling them the Devil Rays. It's the Rays. Oh, shit. They really hate that. Or did they officially change? Did they pull a WWE and drop the Devil and just call them Rays? Is that official? Or like if I look it up on the MLB website, does it say Devil Rays? I'm sorry. I guess I can sort of relate to that. I'm from Detroit. We had the Red Wings. We call them the Wings. But nobody gets pissed if they call them the Red Wings. Seems weird. Y'all people in Tampa are weird. Weird-ass Tampans. Jack Curran, what's up, man? Thanks for the 5 as well. Good to see you. Keep up the great work. Good mic work. You're awesome. What is your favorite Survivor Series match of all time? Mine is Team Austin versus Team Bischoff from 2003. That one was good. If you're talking 5-on-5s, my memory from like 03 to present day is going to be fuzzy, so I'm going to have to pick something prior to that. Man, there were some good ones. I really liked, I'm going way back, but I really liked 88. I really liked 88, the Hogan Savage Twin Towers match. That was fun. There was a lot going on there. The end with Hogan being handcuffed and Slick dangling the keys, and then Slick gets knocked down, and then Elizabeth takes the key and gives it to Hogan, and he goes in to save Savage, and they kind of set the stage for WrestleMania a little bit with Savage looking at Hogan. That one, just because of the memories and everything in my head, and I ordered it and watched it on pay-per-view that night. I might go with that one, but I'd have to give it a little bit more thought in terms of a modern-day one. I can't think of too many better, though, other than the Team Austin, Team Bischoff one. That one was good. That was the year that Shawn really wrestled hard for Steve, right? Like, made it all the way in. It was all bloody. In the end, he lost, and then Austin kind of helped him away from the ring. I remember that match being really good. I always remember, being a little bit thrown off about it because I'm like, why is Shawn, fighting so hard for Austin? They had a pretty intense feud, 5 years prior to this. It all didn't seem like totally fit to me, but the match itself was really good. Other than the one that came just a couple years ago, again, remind me of the year. Was it 2016 or 2017 that they had the awesome 5-on-5 that went like an hour? That one would be on the list as well. I don't remember who won that. I just remember the match being awesome. So in modern times, it would be hard to debate that 03 match for sure. And thanks for another one, Jimmy. Appreciate it. How cool would it be if he came out on his Ministry of Darkness, cut a promo, and then remove and do the rest of the speech as Mark? Oh, you mean at the Hall of Fame? Yeah, something like that is what I thought he could do up until recently. But now, when you got a motherfucker on TikTok, does he really need to come out there and protect the gimmick at this point? When you're on TikTok, there is no more gimmick. That should be the rule. But yeah, something like that is what I envisioned, prior to everything that they've done this year. I'm like, he's not going to be able to come out there as the dead man and do his long Hall of Fame speech as the dead man. That's not going to work. It's not going to look good. It's not going to sound good. He's going to have to be himself. So he's going to have to find a way to get there, from point A to point B. So, but now he's there. So he'll just come out as Mark and do the whole thing. We talked about the Hall of Fame recently on an episode too. And, we still haven't inducted last year's class, and WWE, I think, has got a really good opportunity to immortalize The Undertaker as being the only, aside from Andre, I think, as being the only one-man Hall of Fame class. It kind of fell into their lap here. I wouldn't recommend doing this any other year because, you have a Hall of Fame show that you put on TV. When there's no pandemic, you fill those seats and sell tickets for it. So you can't just have one inductee go in 1 year. How are you going to sell tickets to watch one dude go into the Hall of Fame? You have to have a bunch. But since we haven't done last year's, you could just combine them. Say, sorry, Batista, you got to take a back seat. You're no longer the headliner. You're going to be the headliner of your class, but we're going to do 2020 all prior to this year's WrestleMania, and then the one sole member for this year will be The Undertaker going into the Hall of Fame by himself, and you can combine those two on one show. We've got the Thunderdome now. Yeah, it's not as good as having an actual audience there, but I think you could do a Hall of Fame this year. I think you'd be able to do it, even if it's a virtual type of thing or whatever. So I think that that would be a good way to not only deal with last year's Hall of Fame inductions, but, really make The Undertaker's induction special and set his apart from others by being the lone class member. So that's what I would recommend doing for The Undertaker, but we'll see. Oh, thank you for that, guys. It was 2016. Yeah, my years are always, fuzzy. You know how that can be. Anyway, before we get into, we're going to start with Dynamite. I want to get into the Dynamite results first, and then we're going to close with everything WWE. Everything we saw on, or not everything, but all the key moments we saw on NXT this week, last night's SmackDown, and of course, predicting the Survivor Series. Do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button for me as well before we get into Dynamite. Really, really strong ratings victory for AEW this week. Dynamite scoring 850,000 viewers to NXT's 638. And AEW hit it out of the park in the key demos and all that shit and all those rankings that matter to people. They did very well. Of course, this Dynamite was advertised and headlined to be the Inner Circle's adventure in Vegas. Now, MJF had gotten everybody tickets to Vegas as kind of like a halfway induction present and 50th birthday present to Chris Jericho. And they're all going to go to Vegas and have a good time together. And we knew by the way they were setting all this up a week ago, you could feel that they're going to do some sort of a hangover spoof here. They did, and they went a little too hard on it in my mind. I liked both segments here. It was like a two-part deal on Dynamite. Both of them were good. I just thought they went at the hangover references a little bit too hard. I would have been perfectly fine with something a little bit more subtle than what they did. But they were just hilarious. All these guys have this great group chemistry together that I can't get enough of. You know, the Inner Circle and being around guys like Jericho and MJF can even make, you know, charisma-less people like Hager and Wardlow funny and entertaining, and this whole thing was just fabulous. We had a cameo by Conan. He showed up there, I think, to provide the herbal supplements for the weekend. At one point, I think Jericho and MJF, they're always trying to one-up each other. They wind up drinking Everclear, which I've had that once on my 18th birthday, and I'll never drink it again. Don't drink it, kids. It'll fuck you up. So they were drinking that. Wardlow and Jake Hager were taking turns like beating the shit out of random guys. You had Elvis there. You had Ortiz, who was definitely on crack, doing a couple of really weird things, even working out really energetically at one point. We had Hornswoggle showing up in a diaper. It was just something to behold. Where it ranks in terms of Le Dinner Debonair and some of the other wacky shit that they've done, the debates and things like that, I don't know. It was very entertaining. A little bit of it, though, to me was a little bit too much or a little bit too overdone, and I would have maybe scaled back a bit and made things just slightly more subtle than they did and not be so slapstick. But so much of everything else made up for that. You know, the great, the eyeballing and the one-upsmanship between not only MJF and Jericho, but Wardlow and Jake Hager. I've said in the past couple of weeks on this commentary that Ortiz is becoming my favorite person in the entire wrestling business. The dude is really hilarious. And, of course, MJF doing his thing. So the whole thing was pretty fun. It was a very enjoyable segment, and it lived up to the hype. I mean, they basically let you know a week ago that they were going to do this. So you're like, okay, they're going to have to really do some wacky shit. They did, and I found myself laughing through a good 90% of it. That's good stuff there. Earlier on, when we talked about the wrestling news, I announced that Renee is pregnant. Jon Moxley and Renee are pregnant, and he randomly announced that in this promo, this backstage promo, this very intense promo, where he was talking about his abusive father and things like that, and just kind of offhand mentions that he's got a pregnant wife at home. So congrats again to the happy couple there. He has got a date with Kenny Omega later on in the night to sign their contract for their December 2nd Dynamite match for the title. And we'll fast forward to that because I'm kind of going to jump all over the place here with AEW because I want to gloss over this so we can get down to Survivor Series business. But later on, when Kenny comes out to do the contract signing, they've got the contract table and everything there in the ring. Omega comes out, and there's no Moxley. The camera cuts backstage, and it shows him laid out with like a busted nose or whatever. So Moxley was attacked backstage and was unable to make the contract signing. Omega doesn't seem that concerned about it. Almost kind of blows it off a little bit. So I don't know if Kenny is the reason that Moxley got attacked, if Kenny paid somebody, or if Kenny's got some help, or maybe it was Hangman Page, or something weird's about to happen. I don't know. But Omega mentioned that, Moxley's just making excuses. When they wrestled a year ago, Moxley had that staph infection, I believe, right? Didn't knock him out of one of their matches, and they had to postpone it. I think that might be why in my head a few weeks back I was thinking they had wrestled twice. So I don't know. Who do you guys think? Like, who's the culprit here? Who was the one that attacked Jon Moxley? Is it going to be somebody like Hangman Page or somebody that you wouldn't expect that's helping out Kenny Omega? Is it going to be Moxley's next opponent if he survives Kenny Omega? I don't know. I mean, part of me, or even if he doesn't survive Kenny Omega, they can, call back to this. Kind of like when Earthquake squashed Hogan and then Hogan lost to the Warrior. Earthquake's like, that was because of me. So maybe whoever attacks Moxley here can take credit if he loses to Omega, something like that. Still a lot of signs pointing to Mox dropping the title on December 2nd. to potentially go to Japan and drop the U.S. title at Wrestle Kingdom. They might not want, AEW might not want their champion over there losing matches, so they might want to take the belt off of him now. That seems like what they might be doing here, but either way, I have secured the evening off, needless to say, for December 2nd, and I'm really looking forward to that match because I really like Moxley and I really like Kenny. We saw Pac return last week. This week he's got a match against the Blade, and this was an okay match, and it was good to see Pac back, and I was excited to see him win and beat somebody, which he did after just an amazing shooting star, broken arrow, whatever the fuck it's called, into the brutalizer submission. But during the match, earlier on in the match, the Blade nearly kills Pac. He picks him up in like a standing suplex position, and I guess what he's going to do is drape him on the ropes, a move that we see quite often. But he just doesn't throw him far enough. He like undershoots it, and instead of Pac landing the way he's supposed to, he nearly lands straight down on his head, vertically, on the mat, and just barely saves himself in the nick of time. So that was a really, really scary moment there. But in the end, Pac recovered. He didn't die, wound up tapping out the Blade. Eddie Kingston is on commentary for this immediately after the match. Pac is attacked by the Butcher and by Eddie Kingston, and that's when Rey Fenix comes out to make the save. He, of course, had that crazy match with his brother a week prior. Penta then comes out as well, and, of course, Penta and Phoenix and the Butcher and the Blade and Kingston have kind of formed this little faction. But prior to Eddie being there and prior to the pandemic, Pac was on TV with these two guys as the Death Triangle with Phoenix and Penta. So you don't really know where their alliances are going to be at first. Rey is clearly behind Pac. Penta comes out there. He's got a chair. I think you don't know what he's going to do. In the end, he winds up attacking Butcher and Blade and Eddie with it, and they reunite the Death Triangle, and that's fabulous. You really didn't need Eddie with all those guys anyway, and now you've got one trio on one side and another one on another, and there you go. There's a good December 2nd six-man match, or you can even do it prior to that. But Pac has got his little group back. I'm glad that they picked that back up because that was a long time from the pandemic's beginning when we haven't seen Pac anymore up until now. The fact that they were still able to put that group back together after all this time, even with the two brothers having a couple of matches together recently on TV, the fact that they're able to reunite that group and that trio is awesome. So very happy to see that. That newcomer, Jade Cargill, she was back. She beat the shit out of Brandy backstage, injured her leg. What was interesting is that you had Vicky Guerrero and Nyla Rose like running interference for the referees, and it makes me think that maybe, Vicky is going to take Jade under her wing, perhaps. And we were all wondering about Nyla Rose after the pay-per-view when she didn't win the title. What do you do with her from here? She's kind of like, this very scary badass, and she's an ass kicker. And I felt like you had to turn her babyface after this. But instead of turning her babyface, Vicky just slaps her ass around. She seems bummed out about it, and it seems like Vicky has got this control over her. So I think what's going to wind up happening is Vicky might continue the verbal assault on Nyla Rose, chipping away at her, and eventually Jade, who's now joined Vicky's crew, is going to beat the shit out of Nyla Rose, and Vicky's going to go with Jade and dump Nyla, and Nyla will be on to being a babyface. That's what I feel like is going to happen there. But good to see Jade back. She's got that multi-year deal now, and we should be seeing her on a weekly basis. The women have been getting a little better. I got to say, to me, it's very strange when you have a division that's so weak, why you have two women's titles on your show. But that's just part of the NWA working agreement. Another NWA title match went down on Dynamite with Serena Deeb defending against Thunder Rosa again. This was a really good match. Like I said, it's weird that the AEW title isn't featured as much as the NWA, but I think the wrestling has been far better in a lot of these NWA matches. Thunder Rosa is just spectacular. We all love her. Serena is a pro. This match was really good. We saw some interference and some shenanigans by Britt Baker, who came down to the ring and attacked Thunder Rosa in the match, beat the hell out of her. I thought that was going to be the finish, and Serena would just cover her for the win, but Thunder Rosa kicks out and wrestles for another 2 or 3 minutes before finally succumbing, and Serena hits her with a finisher and pins her to retain the NWA Women's title. But now it looks like we're setting up Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker feud. That's not going to be bad. The only thing that was weird about this is that after Britt attacks Rosa and leaves, and then the match ends, as Thunder Rosa's getting out of the ring, she spots Britt Baker, who's somehow now back in the audience. She's back in the front row there, and she dives over the barricade and grabs her, starts kicking her ass. So I don't know why Britt even came back. That made no sense. It's not like she was trying to it's not like she was trying to hide her identity. It's not like she didn't want Thunder Rosa to know who attacked her. Thunder Rosa knew who attacked her. And then she's going to sit there right there and stare at her. That was weird. I didn't think it was needed. You could have just done without that completely. But anyway, Serena retains. Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker are now off and running. And I had title aspirations for Britt. I've been saying for the past few weeks, you know, Britt's your most over lady right now in the company. Hikaru Shida, as good as she is, much like Riho, she doesn't have any storyline or character or anything of substance at all, even though we like her a lot. Her matches are good. We all root for her. There's nothing there, you know? So, like, if you're going to have one woman on your roster that actually has just a character and a direction and a personality and all of that stuff, put your title with her. She's the centerpiece. I would put the title on Britt Baker right now and let her do her heelish thing. Let her be the Britt Baker that she is, but now she's got a championship. Think about how obnoxious she is without the title. Give her a title, holy crap. But it looks like that will not be happening, at least in the immediate future, because now she's into a feud, which I think is going to be a good one with Thunder Rosa. So I'm looking forward to that. And the only other thing I want to mention about Dynamite is the main event. We had a big tag team match with Team Taz, Brian Cage, and Ricky Starks taking on Cody Rhodes and Darby Allin. Man, it feels good to say Cody Rhodes again. Friggin' Darby just does his Darby shit in this match, taking all sorts of bumps. And the finish was gnarly. Cage pins Darby for the win after, what is it called? Avalanche drill call, something like that. He's on the top rope with him, and he just launches him, and Darby just takes a sick bump, almost just cartwheels right over. Brian Cage pins him, and the heels win. The heels continue the attack on Cody and Darby, and that's when Will Hobbs runs out there again to make the save. He's been doing that a lot in recent weeks. Runs off Team Taz. He's got a chair in his hand, and as Cody puts his hand on his shoulder to thank him for helping him out, he turns around and whacks Cody with the chair, turns heel in a pretty big swerve, surprised a lot of people, and joins Team Taz. I have no problem with this. I saw a lot of people very sad about it because I think Will Hobbs is like a really, really well-liked guy. So I think a lot of people are like, oh, no, how could you, Will? But I liked it. You know, a guy that's like that big, you know, and that intimidating looking, I almost prefer it for the most part when they're heels because I think they can do more with that look as a heel. So the fact that he turned, did a swerve like that, now joining Team Taz, and Taz is formulating himself a pretty impressive looking stable as well, with two enormous dudes and then little Ricky Starks running around there. So anyway, that was your Dynamite in a nutshell. I know we didn't spend a ton of time on it, but I feel like there's just more WWE stuff to get into. Overall, really good show. Had fun with the Vegas stuff, and the main event was good. Loved the swerve. Women's wrestling seems to be picking up in the past couple of weeks on Dynamite as well. So overall, solid stuff. NXT was good too. NXT was good. I think I really, really enjoy the Leon Ruff and Johnny Gargano stuff. Great shit there. I got to open with that. So Johnny Gargano, of course, lost the North American title in that major upset last week to Leon Ruff. So this week, he's got a rematch. He's going to get a chance to get his belt back. Leon Ruff's got to defend against Johnny Gargano. They even showed this big video package for Leon Ruff. Last week they were really making his title victory seem like a comedy angle, sort of. And, and it still felt like that here. It has shades of what AJ Styles was doing with James Ellsworth, kind of, except give AJ Styles, or give James Ellsworth, give him the athleticism of somebody like a Leo Rush. If Ellsworth had that, and he had that type of athleticism, and he could run away and dodge shit, the way Leo Rush did, and the way Leon Ruff is doing, that would be even better. But I really can see the comparisons there based on how Leon Ruff is treated. But he seems like he really wants to be taken a little bit more seriously. He's commanding a little bit more respect. The match here was hilarious because during the match, Gargano, I think he hits the one final beat on Leon Ruff. Damian Priest comes out to the ring, and I think he pulls out Leon Ruff on the outside, and he picks him up, and he looks at him, and he goes, "Sorry, kid," and he just blasts him, just punches him right in the face. The referee sees that and disqualifies Johnny Gargano. When I did the Undertaker video on all of the Survivor Series matches earlier on this week, we talked about Deadly Game Tournament. He had 2 matches. He went 1-1. And in the match that he lost, he's wrestling The Rock. Kane just comes right into the ring, grabs a hold of The Rock, and choke slams him right in front of the referee and leaves. And the referee's like, all right, ring the bell. You're disqualified. So pretty funny stuff there. It reminded me of that. And Priest continues to screw with Johnny Gargano. Leon Ruff wins. He runs away again. Later on backstage, Ruff would start to get a little bit upset that Damian Priest is taking his title run as a joke, basically laughing off what he did to Johnny Gargano. Oh, I'm just messing with him. He's a joke or whatever. And Leon Ruff is like, I'm no joke. Even slaps Damian Priest across the face. Now, all these guys had a lot going on here throughout the show because later on, Damian Priest would have to come back to have a match against somebody. We don't know who. And during his entrance, he's attacked by Johnny Gargano, and they start brawling in the ring. And then Leon Ruff gets involved again. He comes out and winds up knocking both guys out of the ring, and he's kind of standing in the ring by himself, looking around like, holy shit, did that just happen? And then just winds up running away again. So Leon Ruff, he's obviously on borrowed time here, but this is really entertaining. And even though I draw comparisons to the Ellsworth stuff, it's so much better because Leon Ruff is athletic, where James Ellsworth really wasn't. James Ellsworth was hired because he looks like a pile of shit. Leon Ruff wasn't hired for that reason. Leon Ruff is small. He's an underdog. He's going to have a huge uphill battle in his career if he's ever really going to make it to a huge level just due to his size. But he's really good, and he can wrestle, and apparently he's got a great attitude, and he's well-liked, and he wasn't hired as a joke, where they looked at James Ellsworth and said, that guy has no chin. How the hell does he fold towels? Let's bring him in. That wasn't the case with Ruff. So it's similar, but it's not similar. And we'll see how long Leon Ruff can cling to this North American title and which one of these guys is going to beat him for it. You would think that at some point, even if they might have even announced this, I don't know, but feels like we're heading to a triple threat. So Ruff could either, number one, escape again, capitalizing on the obsession that Damian Priest and Johnny Gargano have with each other, and find a way to win the match. And then maybe Regal was not happy with Priest, by the way, with what he did and stuff. So maybe that would be enough to say for Regal to say, you know what, Priest, Gargano, you're both done. No more shots at the title for you. We're moving Leon Ruff into somebody else. And then that person beats Ruff for the title, and then maybe Priest comes back and beats him for the title. I don't know. But otherwise, with a guy like Priest, who's the babyface in this situation, and he's twice the size of both of these guys that he's working with, how much of a babyface move is it to book Priest and Leon Ruff in a match together and have Priest just kill him and win the belt? That's a heel move. That's what Brock does to Kofi. So I don't know if that's necessarily what you want to do either. I'm curious where the North American title goes before it finally lands on a permanent home, like somebody it's going to be on for several months. Whether that's one person after Ruff or two, I don't know. Johnny could essentially win it back again, which might be fun. If Gargano wins it back, now a 3-time North American title, but then his very first challenger is Damian Priest, and Damian Priest beats him, blows off the feud, wins the title back, and Gargano goes 0 for 3 in North American title defenses. That could be fun. That might be my preference. Maybe do something like that. What do y'all think? Ellsworth, man, yeah, he was awful. Man, I got to say, I was really disappointed with the blindfold match on NXT. I was looking forward to Cameron Grimes and Dexter Lumis because we all remember, or I remember because I'm old, WrestleMania 7, Jake the Snake Roberts and Rick Martel put on a hilarious match, and it wasn't really a blindfold match. They had sacks they could see through, to be able to perform the spots and stuff. So when I think about how crazy Grimes is and entertaining he is, and I think about, how scary Lumis is, and they're two very, very different dynamics they have in their personality, and you put two sacks on their heads and let them do what Jake and Martel did, that could be really fun stuff, but it really wasn't. Grimes was entertaining, having the sack on his head because he's bumbling all around. Lumis isn't moving at all. They're very, very different. Grimes is all over the place, even beating the shit out of the referee at one point because he doesn't know that it's the referee. And then when he realizes it's the referee, he takes off his hood, and then there's a brawl, and then the match never even gets a finish. So that was a missed opportunity, I think. In my head, I was looking forward to it. One of the more, and this is on the same show as Io Shirai and Rhea Ripley, and I'm really looking forward to this blindfold match, and it let me down, especially with two characters that I really like. Lumis and Grimes are hilarious. So I kind of wanted more out of them. I don't think that was their fault. I think that was the booking of this match, but I definitely think that could have been more entertaining than it was. We have been talking about War Games lately. That is now official. We're going to get a couple of War Games matches again, a men's and a women's. Shotzi Blackheart does a promo challenging Candice to a War Games match. We kind of saw Candice's team come together here on Wednesday, but Shotzi still has to gather her troops as well. I'm assuming it probably will be Toni Storm, Ember Moon, and maybe somebody else to likely take on Raquel and Dakota and Indy and Candice, I think is what they're likely going to do. Speaking of those ladies, Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell had a tag team match against Casey Catanzaro and Kaden Carter, and won that match pretty handily there as well, and we would see them back out again later on. After that, we had another weird match with Kushida defeating Arturo Ruas, who was drafted to Raw, and then they make no explanation as to why he's back in NXT, but they even run like a little bit of a hype package for him. So you think he's somebody that's going to come in and be pushed, but instead he's going to be somebody who comes in and jobs. Because once you saw that his opponent was Kushida, I'm like, well, he's not going to win this match. And he didn't. And Kushida beat him, and we'll see what happens here with Arturo in the future. But typical WWE, they don't know what is going on. Then next we get another tag team women's match, which is a good one. My God, I am loving me some Raquel Gonzalez. How good is she? Jesus, man. Every match, she impresses the shit out of me. I thought she had a great outing a couple weeks ago against Rhea Ripley. And every time she's in the ring, for somebody as big as she is, she's moving not the way I expected her to. I expected her to be, when I first saw her for the first time, when she did that run-in and interfered, I expected her to be a certain way, and she wasn't. She is 10 times better than that. I love her. They did go down because they have been teasing in recent weeks maybe a tiny bit of stress in the foundation of Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. I feel like Raquel is going to be headed to the main roster at some point. There's no way you can't bring this girl up and make her the female Diesel. And so at some point, maybe her and Dakota are going to have to implode. I think they're going to do War Games first, and I'm hoping that's where Raquel really has a breakout performance in that. They did lose here to the babyface team of Ember Moon and Toni Storm. These four, that is some talent in the ring right now. I feel very, very comfortable and confident in NXT's women's division again. You know, they've always had a great women's division, and some have argued that it maybe has not been as strong. I think it's about as strong as it can be right now, and they're likely going to be missing a big piece here soon, as we'll talk about in the main event. But when you look at these four women alone, you know, not to mention other pieces of talent like your champion, Io Shirai, Candice LeRae, and others, and Shotzi Blackheart, I think, and Xia Li, I think the women's division looks really, really good. Did you see the spot in the match, in the tag match, where Raquel eats a vicious super kick from Ember Moon? I think Raquel is on her knees, or at least on one knee, and Ember hits the ropes, and she just blasts her fucking head off. It was crazy. Go back and watch that spot if you haven't seen it. That was my holy shit moment of the match. But everything else Raquel was doing offensively was great, but she even sold that super kick like $1 million. I am super impressed with her. In the end, Toni Storm catches Dakota Kai with a quick roll-up for the win for the babyfaces. Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell immediately hit the ring after the match and attacked the babyfaces, and that kind of makes you think that's going to be Candice's War Games team. It's likely going to be Candice, Indy Hartwell, Dakota Kai, and Raquel Gonzalez, and I'm assuming they're going to be taking on Ember Moon, Toni Storm, Shotzi is the captain, and then maybe one other female. I don't know. I don't think it would be Io Shirai. Don't know. I don't know who they could add to that babyface team to really make it good. Throw out your suggestions there. But that's likely going to be our War Games matchup, and that's going to be fun. Speaking of Xia Li, they're still teasing something big here with her. William Regal goes to the apartment or the house of Boa. He hasn't been on TV in a while, hasn't reported to the Performance Center, so he wanted to go check on him. He looks like he hasn't slept in days, and said that him and Xia Li are hiding because she is coming. Somebody's coming. So I don't know who this person is, when they're coming, but Boa and Xia Li are freaked out, and at least they have a storyline, you know, so I'm actually kind of intrigued. I want to see where it's going to go. I want to see who the hell they're referring to, who it is, if it's a face I recognize or not. We saw a new face last week that we didn't recognize either, so I don't know. This could be a whole new portion of NXT, or it could be a way to reintroduce somebody that we haven't seen in a while. And that brings us to our main event, my match of the week. Rewatched this again last night. I was just making my notes casually for the podcast, doing some graphics and shit like that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put on a Ripley and Io again. And it's funny now, you know, now that I'm an old fart, I'm in my 5th decade of watching wrestling. 6th if you count the 70s. I don't really count the 70s because I don't remember any matches that I saw in the 70s. But 80s and 90s and then 2000s and then the 2010s and here we are now in the 2020s. All these decades of watching wrestling, I find it's kind of funny how I find myself being just like abundantly proud, of a performance, like when 2 wrestlers just go tear the house down like that. That was just great stuff, man. This was a really good match. And, we've all said that the NXT luster, the NXT magic isn't there anymore. It's not what it used to be. Once they moved to the USA Network, went 2 hours. Takeovers are on Sundays now. It's a lot of the identity that made NXT so special. A lot of that isn't there anymore and isn't what it used to be, but it still is there. And this was a great illustration of that. Just a great match between 2 pros. Just kick-ass match. Brutal from top to bottom. From bell to bell, they were just beating the hell out of each other. Rhea Ripley with a bloody ear and a bloody face. Crazy sunset flip powerbomb into the announce table that Io, I believe, delivered to Rhea Ripley. Amazing back and forth in the ring. And right after that table spot, Rhea Ripley just rolling into the ring, right in perfect position for Io just to jump off and hit that perfect moonsault right onto Rhea Ripley and beat her and retain the title. In a match that really just took my breath away twice. I was that impressed by it. And I don't know, a lot of people are saying this. That's the way I felt as I was watching this happen live, watching the aftermath after Io gets the win, the interaction between her and Rhea Ripley, the show of respect, the hug kind of in the aisleway. It felt like a send-off for Rhea Ripley. I kind of feel like that's going to be a wrap for her, especially losing this title match completely clean. What is there really for her to do now in NXT? I think it's pretty safe to say that she's going to be out of there. And we said this last week. I speculated in the podcast on last Sunday. I said, do you think the loser of the match turns up at Survivor Series? Now that the teams are formed, I don't think Ripley can find her way into the 5-on-5 on either brand. I suppose she could come out at the end of the Sasha and Asuka match and challenge someone. Probably Asuka would be the best bet there. I don't think you really need her on SmackDown. I think Raw is the place for Rhea because Charlotte's on Raw. So what I would like to see is Ripley maybe show up on Monday. On Monday night, we're going to talk about this in a minute when we get into SmackDown or Survivor Series predictions. But maybe Rhea Ripley show up on Monday night and challenge Asuka because Asuka doesn't really have anybody to work with right now, where Sasha does. Sasha's got Carmella. So on Raw, Asuka needs somebody. And how interesting would it be is if you do Rhea and Asuka maybe now or maybe at the Royal Rumble, and maybe you have Rhea beat her, and now she's champion again to go into WrestleMania, to maybe face who she faced last year in a rematch, and maybe get that win back, and beat Charlotte, as Rhea Ripley would say. So I would like to see something like that, and now that it appears that she's done in NXT, I think Raw is the place for her. I think she can either come out at the end of the Sasha and Asuka match, maybe challenge Asuka there, just to make an appearance, something else special to happen on Survivor Series, or save it for Monday Night Raw. I think saving it for Monday would be more fun, honestly. I think Rhea appearing like that in the middle of Survivor Series, in the middle of everything else going on, would almost get lost. Where on Monday, it can be a big moment. So best of luck to Rhea Ripley. What a run. I know it didn't really end that well for her, especially the way she closed out the year last year, winning the title and having a very strong 2020 up until WrestleMania, where she ran into Charlotte. And then after that, not much, but still, she's a very, Triple H is still very high on her. I think WWE still sees the future in her. She's extremely young. She's too good to be buried type of thing. So this isn't something where one loss can beat her. I mean, she lost fair and square, clean to Io Shirai on Wednesday night. Doesn't make me think for 1 second that she wouldn't be able to beat Asuka for the title. I think she could. So I think Raw is a place for her, and I hope we see her there. Now, what was interesting about that match, and this is the part I didn't like about NXT. Looks like they got an overrun here. They went about 5 minutes over. I think luckily for them, they were playing the Undertaker special, I think, on the USA Network, so they were able to cut into their own time there. But at first I'm like, is this a ratings ploy with NXT? Have they been going 5 minutes over every week and I haven't noticed? Because during the match, they're hyping up this appearance by Finn Balor, and I'm like, why is this not the main event? Why is Io Shirai and Rhea Ripley hugging each other not the very last thing we see on NXT? I liked what we saw at the end, but that should have been done earlier. Like, I think Io and Ripley, they should have faded to black with Io holding up the title. in my mind. Like, that match was that good. It should have been given that respect. But in the end, they tried to shoehorn Finn Balor coming back to cut a promo as a way to announce, so to speak, the 4-on-4 War Games match between Pat's Pack and the Undisputed Era. So Finn's out in the ring. He's talking about things. He says, I've been off and I'm the champ. And when the cat's away, the mice will play, some shit like that. Pat's Pack comes out, and Pat McAfee proceeds to talk for like 10 minutes longer than he should have, only for Balor to say, look what the cat dragged in, some shit like that about cats. Didn't really care about any of this stuff. And I don't even know why Balor, it was great to see Balor back. It was great to see our NXT champion back on TV. But why was Balor used to set this up? Couldn't they have just done this any other way? So anyway, he brings out the Undisputed Era, big brawl with Pat's Pack and the UE, and the show goes off the air. And it felt like all of this was supposed to be done on air, but they just ran out of time. So on the network and on social media, they had William Regal, of course, come out just like last year, and he telegraphed the hell out of this, and he's getting on the stage, and he's on the mic, and he goes, you know what's coming, and he hypes it up, takes him about 30 more seconds to finally say it, and then he says, War Games. So there you go. It's going to be Pat McAfee, Oney Lorcan, Danny Burch, and Pete Dunne taking on Roddy and Kyle and Bobby and Adam, and should be fun. War Games is going to be awesome. But again, I felt like this entire segment. When is War Games, by the way? Help me help me out. Don't have the date for this. Is this on fucking TV or is this a pay-per-view? I don't know. But they could have, unless it's next week or something, they should do it for December 2nd. That's what I would do, to go up against Moxley and Omega. But whenever this is, unless it's next week, they could have just done this whole entire segment next week, or done this whole entire segment prior to the women going out there and tearing the house down. I still think the whole segment was good, and the brawl was good, and Balor and Regal and everybody played their part, and it was spectacular. But I don't know. The women's match was so damn good, I kind of just wanted them to get their respect at the end of that match. That's my only critique, I suppose, of the show, and it felt like it was a little bit poorly timed. I don't know what went on there. I know Io Shirai was injured. They were tending to her, I think, during one of the commercial breaks in the match, so maybe that slowed down the pace. I don't know. That was the only thing that I could tell that might have screwed up their timing here. Otherwise, I was a little confused by what was going on at the ending of NXT this week. So anyway, that wraps it up for Wednesday. Between the two shows, I gotta give the nod to NXT on the sole fact of the women. They got their asses handed to them in the ratings, but this is one of those weeks where, even though they lost in the ratings, I think they had the better show. And I don't often say that. AEW is still far ahead in the head-to-head matchups with me whenever I pick a favorite show, but this is one of those weeks where one match made the entire show for me. Hats off to Rhea and Io. Fantastic stuff. All right, let's run through SmackDown a little bit, and then we'll get into the Survivor Series predictions. And then I'm out of here. Let's bust out a couple of Super Chats first. Oh, man, I got a bunch. All right, I'm all the way back up here to Jimmy Anderson. I got you. Let's start knocking these out. Crash, thank you, man, and welcome back. Appreciate the $2. Respectfully, you look like Adam Pearce. I've heard that before. I've also heard Christopher Daniels, and I've heard all sorts of guys. Michael Stipe, Goldberg, Gilbert, Steve Austin. Spaz Phoenix, welcome back, dude, and thank you, man, for the $20. It's very generous of you. Hey, Greg, hope you're well. I'm well. Lots to plug this week. Me and DeMarco cranked out a Survivor Series preview and round 1 of the NXT Women's Breakdown. Coming soon, round 2, a Dark Knight review and coverage leading to War Games. Yeah, go please subscribe to Spaz Phoenix's channel. Lots of good wrestling discussion over there. And they talk about a lot of topics that I don't. So if you want to hear about other stuff, like really in-depth NXT stuff, movies, shit like that, go check out the Spazster. And thanks for chiming in with 5 more, Spaz. If Team Shotzi is her, Ripley, Storm, and Moon, that's the best team since DX, Hardy's, Punk at SummerSlam. Oh, yeah. Ripley, Storm. Oh, yeah, I guess, yeah, I was like, oh, who's going to be the third lady? It could be Ripley. But I feel like Ripley makes the most sense. But remember last year, Ripley was like super dominant in War Games. I don't want to see Rhea go into War Games and like lose or something. You know, I felt like she put over Io in the title match, passed whatever NXT torch there is to pass, and then go to the main roster. I actually don't think there's room for her in the War Games. I wouldn't put her in there. I think War Games last year was a way to showcase Ripley, because wasn't she super dominant in that, right? And then she was super dominant at Survivor Series right after. So I think this year should be used to showcase somebody else like Raquel. So if it was up to me, I would keep Ripley out only to put the focus on somebody else. That's the only reason. So yeah, if it's not Ripley, who the hell is it going to be? But thanks for everything, Spaz. Deshaun Robinson, thanks for the $3. Always get a chuckle when Regal yells War Games. He couldn't wait to say it. He had that smile on his face. He was almost like chuckling himself. He wanted to say it so bad. Nothing's going to ever top that last year when he's like, War Games. But this year was still pretty good. Luigi DeRaw, appreciate the 5. When is Flair coming back? When is Flair coming back? When she comes back, have Rhea debut immediately after Charlotte comes out like Triple H and Undertaker. I think they should be very close together. I think Charlotte, there's a chance we see Charlotte tomorrow. There's a chance that we see Charlotte maybe on Monday or something. But I think that they should hold Charlotte off until the beginning of the year and then maybe do Rhea and Asuka with Charlotte coming in and maybe somehow leading to a rematch with Ripley and Charlotte. You can get to that destination by taking 5 or 6 different roads. Doesn't really matter how you get there, but I think if you got there and gave Rhea that win back, be curious to see if WWE does that, if they'd put down Charlotte on their pay-per-view, especially on their big show. You know, Charlotte's like Miss WrestleMania, especially with her missing so much time and being off and coming back. You know, a lot of times you win all your matches after that scenario, but Rhea's been there. She hasn't taken any time off. She's been working her ass off in terms of deserving it. Rhea does, and she should get that win back. You know, that was disappointing for a lot of people for her to drop that match at WrestleMania. So we'll see. I think early 2021, though, is when we'll see Charlotte. Michael, good to see you. Appreciate the $5. Thanks, man. Did you see the Undertaker and Snoop Dogg crossover merch? I forgot to mention that. That's something I didn't know I needed in my life. Me neither. So that ties into what I was talking about at the beginning of the episode here. We were talking about how WWE spent 3 decades protecting the gimmick of the Undertaker only to completely undo all of that and humanize him just within the past several months this year, and now going heavy on it just this week alone with all of these additional documentaries on the network, and now with the Undertaker being on TikTok and Cameo, and now he's got crossover merchandise with Snoop Dogg. This is definitely 2020 because it can't get any weird. You can't even make this shit up, man. So yeah, that's 2020 for you. And I didn't know I needed it either. I took a look at a little bit of it. I won't buy any, but I still thought it was interesting and cool. Deshaun, thanks again, man, for 5 more. I always appreciate it. I would keep Rhea off TV until 2021. And when Charlotte returns, Rhea pops up and says, I want my win back at Mania 37, one-on-one, no title, grudge match. That could be a good way to do it as well. You don't necessarily have to have Rhea and Charlotte battle for a title. But since last year was for the NXT, I do think it would be kind of cool for this year to be for the Raw title. And then who knows? Maybe in another year or so, maybe 2 years, the two can meet again at WrestleMania, only this time for the SmackDown title. And they can really build this long-running rivalry because, you know, Rhea Ripley, you know, her whole entire look and her persona largely was built out of trying to separate herself from the Charlotte comparisons. We've heard her talk about that before, because before her, you know, the darker look and the more metal look that she has to her, she was blonde, wearing bright red, you know, wrestling gear. And she's pretty, and she just looks a lot like Charlotte. So she had to change that up, cut her hair and dye it, and dark eyebrows and piercings and spikes and leather and all of that. And she did everything she could to kind of get away from that. But in the end, there's always going to be a comparison there because athletically, they're very similar, not only in size, but also what they can do. So I think it would be so fun to just build a Shawn versus Brett rivalry. Charlotte's a few years ahead of Rhea, just like Brett was a few years ahead of Shawn. But Shawn took over for Brett, you know, when Brett was no longer capable or Vince wanted to move on. And I think you can make Rhea that same person, and you can have the two have a legitimate rivalry where Charlotte, much like Brett, wins all the matches at first, and then Rhea comes back and wins them, you know, in the end or something. Because you got to remember, you know, nobody, when Bret Hart was beating Shawn Michaels at Survivor Series 1992, 28 years ago, nobody was saying Shawn was buried. Even though Shawn was very capable, even though Shawn was starting to bubble and starting to rise, and the stock was starting to rise, and you started seeing that he could compete for a world title, nobody was saying, oh, Brett buried Shawn. People didn't think that way back then. So you could essentially do a lot of the same things there with Charlotte and Rhea if you can stretch this on-again, off-again rivalry that they have with each other for the next 8 years. could be a great story, to be told over the long term if, number one, WWE has the patience to book something like that, and number two, if the fans have the patience. And if we know anything about the fans, they don't have any patience at all. So it's going to be hard to ever put Charlotte over in that situation against Rhea Ripley without the fans screaming burial. You notice nobody said Io Shirai buried her, but Charlotte would, apparently, if that match happens again and Charlotte wins. So we'll see. Either way, I don't know if you need to keep Rhea off TV or not. I don't think you really do, especially with Charlotte already being gone for this long. Rhea getting there and kind of getting rolling on Raw, I think almost might be better. And then Charlotte come back after Rhea's had some success and confront Rhea. Instead of Rhea confronting Charlotte, Charlotte confront Rhea and say, hey, girl, this is my house. And by the way, in case you don't remember, I beat you last year at WrestleMania. And that can serve the same purpose of Rhea wanting to right that wrong. And Charlotte getting in her face and goes, why don't we wrestle again? I bet you can't do it again. That sort of thing. So you can do it either way. I guess in the end, it doesn't really matter how you do it, as long as you get to that match somehow. All right, let's get through SmackDown here before we get into the predictions. And that should be it for the podcast today. By the way, keep smashing that thumbs up button for me if you don't mind. Yes, Deshaun, and thanks again for $4 more, dude. Appreciate it. Did I see Jeff's cosplay tribute of the Undertaker? Yeah, I saw all of those. The only ones I remember are AJ, Jeff, and Sasha look good doing the Taker thing. But Jeff was he looked very Tim Burton-ish. He looked very Willy Wonka or something in that. He almost looked more like Willy Wonka than he did the Undertaker. But very cool. I really like all of the tributes, the ongoing tributes that we've seen all month long, from the website to shit on TV to wrestler tributes and stuff like that. I think tomorrow, as we're going to talk about here in a minute when we get into Survivor Series, what they can do throughout the show to tribute Taker. I think there's some potential to do some really fun stuff. We'll see. In terms of what went down last night on SmackDown, of course, this was the go-home show. Nothing too interesting here, although they did have to finish filling out the women's team. 2 spots were missing from that, and Roman and Drew had to sign their contracts, and we had a big upset win as well, and a return, and a new haircut. So there was, for a go-home show, 2 days before a pay-per-view, I didn't think we would have to talk about anything for SmackDown, but we kind of do because shit went down on it. We got to talk about the contract signing first. That was fantastic. Roman continues to display why he's just the greatest goddamn heel in wrestling right now. He sat there with Drew, and I remember, you guys might remember this too, like a year or so ago, over the last year, and even longer than that, since Drew McIntyre has been back in the company, and sometimes WWE didn't push him or didn't do anything with him, and I always would talk about Vince McMahon's obsession with certain types of wrestlers and how they look. And everybody says, oh, Vince McMahon's in love with Roman Reigns, and he jerks off the pictures of him and shit like that because he looks so great and everything. And I'm like, when it comes to what Vince McMahon likes, these just big, giant, ass-kicking guys, scary-looking guys, I think Drew McIntyre looked far more menacing and intimidating than babyface Roman did. And I was like, Drew seems to be more Roman-like than Roman. Why doesn't Vince like Drew? I mean, he's this... I think he even looks a little bit better. He's got even a bit better physique. Roman wears the chest protector. Drew's got that facial hair. He looks a lot like, I said, he was a combination of Ravishing Rick Rude and Scott Hall. That's kind of like the combo I've always felt that Drew McIntyre was. And I always thought that he was maybe a little bit slightly better in the ring and maybe even slightly better on the mic. I feel dumb for saying that now because he is not slightly better on the mic. Roman is just absolutely fan-fucking-tastic. And he just annihilated verbally Drew McIntyre. I mean, Drew held his own at first at the table. Oh, by the way, I like the way the contract signing was set up. You notice they didn't sit across from each other. Pierce sat on the other side of Drew. Roman sat at the head of the table because he's the tribal chief. Little detail like that I absolutely loved about the contract signing. And, Drew goes on to say his piece, and he's very good, and he held his own, and he certainly didn't seem intimidated at all. But Roman just completely shrugged it off. In the line about, you're my favorite number 2. You're who they go to when I'm busy. Well, Roman's busy, better call Drew. I'm not only the tribal chief of my own family, I'm the tribal chief of WWE. You're nothing compared to me. You're the secondary champion. I'm the face. I'm the poster boy. I'm the flag bearer, that sort of thing. And Drew is just sitting there with this look on his face. You could, if picture, what's it called? What's a phrase I'm looking for, the figure of speech I'm looking for. His eyes told an amazing story. His face told a story. He's got this snicker on his face, and he's trying not to break, but you know inside he's just dying inside. Crying inside, in fact, like crying Michael Jordan. So what Roman did in that promo was pretty impressive. And it was like, God, he really is, planting a flag there is nobody can touch me type of thing. And I always thought prior to this, in years past, that Drew has nothing. He doesn't have to take the back seat to Roman on anything. Size, physique, looks, ring ability, mic work, anything like that. I always thought Drew had everything Roman had, if not more. I don't think I feel that way anymore after watching this. I mean, you got to remember, too, Drew is still slightly bigger, I think, than Roman. He's got about an inch on him, I think, and he might have a little bit of body mass on him, too. But he comes off looking like the weaker opponent here. I'm going to get into my prediction here in a minute because based on what we saw Roman do to Drew last night, in my head, I'm like, how is this guy going to go into his match tomorrow and lose his match? Especially how they've kind of resurrected Drew, the whole new entrance and shit like that on Monday, and then putting down Randy Orton and then getting, bitch smacked verbally on SmackDown and then losing on top of that tomorrow. So I've got some ideas about how this match is going to go. So stay tuned. We'll talk about it in just a minute. Big win as well last night for Buddy Murphy, or Murphy. He took on Seth Rollins. Seth last week finally wrapped up his whole deal with Rey Mysterio because he's going to be taking some time off to go be with Becky to welcome the birth of their first child. And they did the deal last week where Murphy was accepted into the Mysterio family, and now he's coming out there one-on-one versus Seth, and he brings all the Mysterios with him. So, yeah, that's what I like to do before a fight. Just bring my girlfriend and her entire family out to ringside with me. That's fun. But you know what? Has a great match with Seth. Catches him with just a super crazy stiff knee right into Murphy's Law. And credit to Seth, who lays there for a few minutes. If you notice when he hit the Murphy's Law, not only did Seth get pinned by that move, he laid there for 5 or 6 seconds before Murphy crawled over to him to make the pin and still got the pin. Really putting over Murphy's finisher. Awesome of them to do that. That's a big win. You got to remember who Seth Rollins was. This is a guy that's main evented some WrestleManias, won world titles at WrestleManias multiple times, multiple victories over Brock Lesnar. One of their cornerstone talents that they have. And Buddy, aside from being a disciple of Seth Rollins, has never really exceeded any heights higher than the Cruiserweight title, and a little tiny mini stint he had with Roman Reigns a year or so ago where he really impressed a lot of people and were like, there's no reason this guy should not be beating main event talent. It's taken all this time for him to finally do it. He puts down Seth here in a great match, and really happy to see that, and hoping that Murphy isn't just a placeholder for Seth while he's off TV, and then when Seth comes back, he beats Murphy, and Murphy's back down to being a mid-card. Make something of this guy. He's great shape, great wrestler, fucking awesome in the ring. Everything about Murphy is wonderful, and do something with him, WWE. Maybe this is a start. So I was really happy to see Murphy pick up that win over Seth last night. Daniel Bryan debuted with the new hairstyle. He did the hairstyle that every single man with hair in the world has. I know it's dripping with irony, the fact that I'm making fun of hairstyles when I don't have any. But why does every guy have to do the shaved on sides and hair on top thing? Every guy has that. But anyway, he looked good. Daniel Bryan has changed his hair up a lot in WWE. He had it really, really short when he came in. Then it got really, really long. The beard got really, really long. Then it got semi-short. Then it got kind of long again. Then it got back short again. He's been back and forth. Now he's got a new look here. It looks pretty good on him. He had a rematch with Jey Uso. Jey beat him a couple of weeks ago, and he got his win back. So happy to see Daniel Bryan put down Jey. Do you think Bryan could be the next challenger for Roman? Once we get on the other side of Survivor Series, what does Roman do? I can't see him having another match with Jey, at least right now, so he's got to have some sort of an opponent. Is it going to be Daniel Bryan? And if not, who is it going to be? Backstage, this was dumb. I had to mention this because it pissed me off. So backstage, Adam Pearce approaches Otis, and he just chooses him. He goes, you know what? You're on the men's SmackDown team now, because they haven't even filled out the SmackDown men's team prior to Friday night, and you've had qualifying matches for some of them, and then here he just picks Otis when you got Big E sitting right there. I don't know why. I mean, I suppose I can understand that. I know it makes no sense that Big E isn't on the team, but I want to see big success for Big E. I want to see a big push for Big E. I want to see a world title in Big E's future. I don't think SmackDown's going to win the 5-on-5. So I'm not putting Big E in this match if he's going to lose. So leaving him out almost, to me, telegraphs the fact that Raw is going to win this match, the 5-on-5, the men's 5-on-5. Otherwise, you would think that Big E would be in there. So it's just odd that he picked Otis when you got somebody way more capable than Big E sitting right there. Chad Gable shows up, takes credit for Otis being picked on the team because he says it's because of Alpha Academy or whatever that shit is he's plugging, and he takes credit for that. They kind of walk off, and that's when Adam Pearce also chooses Bayley. Bayley, of course, isn't currently booked for Survivor Series. He chooses her to be on the SmackDown team as well, and he makes Natalya qualify. Natalya's already lost a couple of opportunities to be on the team. She really wants to be on the team. She feels that she should just be added because of her legendary status, and Pearce says, I have the authority to add one team member, which is kind of a lame way of explaining why he's allowed to do that. He goes, and I'm choosing Bayley, so you're going to have to qualify. Sorry. And Natty goes out there, has a match with Tamina, and luckily does finally qualify. You could see this coming a mile away here. This story is written. This Natty stuff on the SmackDown side, this Lana stuff on the Raw side, you know they're going to come together, and I'll predict it in a minute, but I think you know where I'm going. We also had an in-ring promo with Sasha Banks and Carmella, where Carmella attacked her and kicked her ass. So you know that's going to be Sasha's first victim. Sasha is not going to be dropping that belt to Carmella. If she does, I'm selling my belongings and moving to the wilderness. And the only other match I want to talk about is the 8-man tag with the 2 tag team champs that are going to be facing each other tomorrow. New Day and Street Profits defeating Sami Zayn, Dolph Ziggler, Baron Corbin, and Robert Roode in a really fun 8-man tag. Fun interaction on the mic, setting all this stuff up with the New Day. You know, Big E, it's back. They're funny. They're back on SmackDown, but they didn't have any interaction with Big E. Big E mentioned them in his deal, but they didn't come face-to-face in the ring, which is good. But still, just having the New Day there was stupid because I think you need to keep Kofi and Xavier and Big E not even on the same show. And if you wanted to have the Profits and New Day team up and do something silly, you could have just done this shit on Monday and sent Profits to Raw and done this whole shit there. So this was dumb, but the match was still fun. It was good. And in the end, I believe it was Sami Zayn that ate the pin and the babyfaces won. And all in all, SmackDown was a really fun show last night, and normally go-home shows suck, especially on Raw. But this was probably one of the better go-home Raws and SmackDowns we've seen, because on Raw, we saw a brand new champion, and on SmackDown last night, we saw a pretty damn good show. So probably 2 of the best go-homes they've done in recent memory. I can't remember when both Raw and SmackDown leading into a pay-per-view was good. Usually one or both suck. So hats off to not a horrible week in wrestling. Monday night was good, Friday night was good, or Wednesday night was good. What else do you want? That leaves us with Survivor Series. Here we go with your Survivor Series predictions. Thank you to everybody that's been hanging out for the last 90 minutes waiting for me to get to this. I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast that I have Survivor Series and Raw tying the main card. I've got them going 3-3, 3 wins for each brand, but I'm giving SmackDown the nod in the pre-show Battle Royal, which I don't even think they count in the main record anyway, because I think last year when Raw annihilated them, they didn't count it, if I remember right. Help me out with that. So let's start running through the results here. Running through the predictions. We'll start with the dual-branded Battle Royal that will be taking place on the kickoff. I don't know who's going to win this because I don't even know who's in it. We have no idea who's in it. How can you pick a winner when you don't know who the competitors are? At least I didn't see any as of yet on WWE.com unless they've added some that I don't know about. But I think it's going to be a SmackDown person. I think it's going to be a SmackDown person winning the Battle Royal. And when I think about the SmackDown roster, there's 2 people that I think about right away, one of which we saw last night approach Otis, Chad Gable. He's trying to put himself over as this Gable or Alpha Academy or whatever the fuck it is. And this would be an excellent bragging point for him. He can come on TV and talk about how he won the Battle Royal and he beat 19 other guys in one night. It would be a big thing for him to win it. And I think they could make use of how obnoxious he is on TV if he was to win this. Or you can go the other direction and just have a monster win it. And who's the monster right now on SmackDown that's come in recently? Lars Sullivan. Unless he's hurt. We haven't seen him in a while, right? He's not hurt, is he? Provided Lars is fine, I think Lars Sullivan is another really good option. So I'm going to go Gable or Sullivan to win the Battle Royal for the SmackDown brand tomorrow. That's my pick. or SmackDown person, I should say, is my pick. But I think it's going to be one of them. Main card now. Let's start with that tag team match because I think that's really the sleeper match. I'm really excited to see the New Day and the Street Profits. I guess maybe because, they're kind of similar. They're very similar athletically. They're similar in style, promo style, fun-loving style. They dress very loudly, and they're always singing and dancing, having a good-ass time. They're all very athletic, and they're all extremely charismatic. And New Day has been around for so long now, and Profits are new and young. You got a torch passing thing here, possibility type of shit happening. So not that New Day is, doesn't have a whole lot of miles left. They do, but their team, especially with Kofi on there, has been around for a long time. They're veterans and they've had a long run together. So based on how long they've been and their longevity and what they mean to the company, a loss means nothing for the New Day, but it can mean the world for the Street Profits. So I think you should have the Street Profits win in a sleeper match, in a match that I think has a very good chance of being the best match on the show, provided they're given enough time. And I think they will. It's only a 6-match card. You know what I mean? So I think that's going to be really fun. And in the end, I'm going to pick the Street Profits to beat the New Day. I think that's the right thing to do there. That one took me a while to decide, but in the end, I'm picking Street Profits. We've got United States Champion Bobby Lashley taking on Intercontinental Champion Sami Zayn. This one is, when I wrote it down, I just instinctively wrote Lashley. Look at Lashley. Who's beating Lashley? Sami Zayn, the what did Xavier call him on SmackDown? The divorced dad that just put down a deposit on a 400 square foot studio apartment. he looked like that. This raggedy ass dude with no money. Making fun of him. So honestly, when you look at Sami and you look at Bobby Lashley, who's just on a tear right now, and I mentioned on Monday night in the podcast that I want to see Lashley just hold on to the U.S. title until like 2022 and get a world title shot as U.S. champion. Like pull a Goldberg, win the U.S. title first, never even drop the damn belt. Pull a Warrior, win the Intercontinental title, never drop the damn belt, just be so damn good they put you with the world champion. That type of thing. I'd like to see Lashley have this long run and eventually do something like that. So I just assumed that he would just pick up the win here. He's too awesome. He's too strong. Sami doesn't stand a chance. He's a little chicken shit heel, but Sami has been able to escape a lot of matches with victories lately by pulling like shenanigans and stuff. So what I think is going to happen here is Sami is going to pull some shenanigans and he's going to get the win. Maybe not even via pin. It might be a DQ. At some point, WWE is going to probably have to have a DQ or something like that in here somewhere. So I think Sami Zayn's going to get his hand raised. I don't know if it's DQ, count out, pin, whatever. It ain't going to be a submission. I suppose he could catch Bobby Lashley up with a roll-up pin. I think Sami Zayn's going to win the match, but he's going to get killed after the match by the entire Hurt Business, especially if he pulls a fast one and cheats, and then they all swarm him and jump him and just beat the shit out of him. I think that would be fun. It would give Sami a lot to talk about on Friday. He can come out and say, I beat Bobby Lashley. And he just be obnoxious. He can be like Trump, who just lost the election. I won the election. He'll be just like that. He'll have gotten his ass handed to him, but he'll be on TV pretending that he did something great against Bobby Lashley when Lashley just whipped his ass. So we'll see. I think Sami's going to I think he's going to pull out the upset, though. I think Sami's going to find a way to win that match. I don't have a lot of confidence in that prediction, but I feel like it could happen, and it might be fun if it did. We've got the Women's Survivor Series 5-on-5 elimination match. We've got Team SmackDown consisting of Ruby Riott, Liv Morgan, Natalya, Bianca Belair, and Bayley taking on Team Raw, Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, Peyton Royce, Lacey Evans, and Lana. Aside from the tag team champions, the Raw team is weak. So based on the strength of the team, my instinct tells me SmackDown. Look at that. You got Bayley and Bianca Belair. Those two alone could beat the 5 of those ladies on Monday Night Raw, if you ask me, maybe aside from not including Shayna Baszler. And plus, we really want to see Bianca Belair get on the map. We've all been calling for that. I want to see Bianca Belair win the Royal Rumble. That's what I want to see. But she could also have a really strong showing here, especially if she's the survivor, especially if she's the sole survivor, or she doesn't necessarily have to survive. She could also pull a Diesel in 1994. He beat everybody on the team, but he didn't win. So she doesn't necessarily have to win this match, which is why I'm not picking SmackDown. I'm picking Raw, because Lana has been going through a table 9 weeks in a row. They've been playing up the fact that she doesn't deserve to be on the Raw women's team. She also has Natty on the other side. They were together and then broke up and the whole deal. I think what's going to wind up happening is Lana is going to be your sole survivor here, winning for the Raw team. And I think with Bianca Belair, you can take care of that. Bianca can still have a good outing and not have to win this thing. Her and Bayley can cancel each other out, because that's your feuds going forward. You're going to have Sasha and Carmella, and you're going to have Bayley and Bianca. And I think Bayley's going to put Bianca over in the end. So I think they're somehow going to cancel each other out. You see that shit every year. It's as old as the Survivor Series pay-per-view itself. They get counted out together. They start brawling or not getting along, or one of them leaves. Bayley gets pissed and leaves, or Bayley and Bianca brawl with each other, or fight on the outside of the ring and they're both counted out, or one of them costs the other one to get pinned, and the other one comes back and gets revenge and costs, if Bayley screws up and gets Bianca eliminated, then Bianca returns the favor and gets Bayley eliminated. They cancel each other out and they can go off on their feud. And as long as Bianca eliminates, because look who's on the Raw team. You got Peyton Royce, Lacey Evans. I'd have Bianca eliminate both of them at least, and maybe even put down Nia Jax. Maybe even score a roll-up pin on Shayna Baszler, even better. Having Bianca eliminate 3 people minimum, I think is necessary. Have her have a really good showing here, and then have Shayna Baszler choke out a few, choke out Liv, choke out Ruby, choke out Natty. Nia Jax go on the outside of the ring and put Lana through a table, maybe getting her disqualified. The referee's like, hey, you can't put your own teammate through a table. You're disqualified. Nia Jax is out of the equation. Then everything happens in the ring while Lana is laying there destroyed and everybody kind of forgets about her. And then you have Natalya say, get the final fall, maybe fucking pinning Lacey or some shit. I don't know. And that's when Lana scoots in under the bottom rope, rolls up Natalya, pins her, crushing Natalya's dreams and becoming the sole survivor and all of that. So I think that's the way it's going to go, and I'm going to predict Team Raw to beat Team SmackDown in the women's 5-on-5. Men's 5-on-5, we've got Team SmackDown, Jey Uso, Otis, Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, and Baron Corbin taking on Team Raw, AJ Styles, Matt Riddle, Braun Strowman, Keith Lee, and Sheamus. I don't know how the hell Team SmackDown thinks they're going to win this match, dissension or no dissension in Team Raw. When you throw Otis into that team, that tells me they're not winning. So I'm predicting Raw to win both 5-on-5s. They can still win both 5-on-5s. It doesn't have to be 1-1. They can win it and still have the overall number here tied. So I think Team Raw is going to win. I don't know who's going to be the survivors here. I certainly think that Strowman and Lee, because remember, Strowman had that big outing last year. Keith Lee did. He doesn't necessarily need to do that this year. Again, much like, we see in a lot of Survivor Series matches, you can do some shit canceling each other out. Strowman and Lee, double count out, brawl, or do something to fuck up and they're both out or whatever. Or this entire team can survive, which would also be fun because AJ Styles has been trying to prove himself as the captain. He's been trying to get his troops together in recent weeks on Raw, even putting them in matches together so they can have some practice, and then it all breaks down in the end and they all just brawl, and AJ, he thinks he's got a grip on it, and then it all just implodes in the end. It would be funny if they all remained on the same page here and did all 5 guys surviving. All of them. Even Sheamus. He gave Drew a sword so he can stay. Have all 5 of these guys survive, and then AJ can go on TV and say, look, I'm the greatest captain ever. I took a whole bunch of guys that hated each other, and I made us dominant. But that's because people listen to me, because I'm AJ Styles. Yeehaw. So that would be cool. I would like to see that. Either way, whether they all survive or not, I'm going Raw to win the men's 5-on-5. Asuka, Raw Women's Champion, taking on Sasha, SmackDown Women's Champion. I'm going Asuka in this. I'm going Asuka because I think we can get some interference from Carmella. Basically, you can go either way here. I think with both of these ladies, Sasha is becoming a star. She's doing this, I'm the Beyonce of WWE type of thing. I love Sasha Banks. Everything about her just reeks of star, to me. So I don't necessarily want to see her lose, but she is locked in this, impending program with Carmella. I can see Carmella running out there, costing Sasha the match, or distracting her enough to where she loses, and then she can just focus all of her energy on Carmella next Friday on SmackDown. And then the night after Survivor Series on Raw, you've got a victorious Asuka coming out there. I think a victorious Asuka would be better than a losing Asuka coming out on Raw. Maybe she comes out on Raw, and that's when you get the Rhea Ripley appearance. She comes out, challenges Asuka, and then we've got our feud set, Asuka and Rhea for the future. I think Asuka would benefit more as the victor at Survivor Series in a segment like that. Or you could flip it and have somebody come out and interfere and cost Asuka the victory, giving Sasha the win, and then Asuka tomorrow night wants revenge on whoever cost her. That would work too. Both scenarios, I think, work equally well, and in both scenarios, neither one will diminish or devalue either lady. So I honestly don't care which one it is, but I think it's going to be, since Sasha currently has somebody to work with, I think it's going to be Sasha getting screwed here, and Asuka will beat her. Because I think Asuka should remain unbeaten until she drops the title. You know, that's just the way I kind of feel. So I'm going Asuka to beat Sasha, which if you're keeping score, I think you know now who I'm going to be picking in the main event. What I'm assuming is the main event. It's probably going to be it could be the Undertaker segment, which we will talk about in a minute. WWE Champion Drew McIntyre versus Universal Champion Roman Reigns. I went back and forth on this, just like I talked about it a minute ago with the contract signing. I said, how can WWE do what they do verbally to Drew and then have him lose on top of that on Sunday? But you know what? I think they're going to do it. I can't see Roman dropping a match here. And I certainly don't think if this is going to be the main event, that they would do a disqualification or something. I think if they're going to go through the trouble of giving us this match, even changing their plans up, because they had an out. They had Randy Orton and Roman Reigns. If they didn't want to do Drew and Roman, they didn't have to. They chose to do this. So if they chose to do this, they better goddamn well give us a finish here. But I don't want to see either one of these guys get pinned. Drew McIntyre's kind of been reborn. He's got all this momentum. For him to take a loss here less than a week after winning the title would be a little hard to envision. But it's hard to envision Roman eating a pin here either. So somebody's got to get involved. You got lots of wild card here. The Miz could try to attempt to cash in. I still think that would be crazy if that son of a bitch did that. You could have Randy Orton make an appearance. You could have Retribution make an appearance, although I don't think they are. I've got another idea for Retribution. You could have The Fiend make an appearance. But again, I've got another idea for The Fiend, so I think I'll keep him out of this as well. So when I was thinking about all that, I'm like, okay, well, let's say Randy Orton comes out. Why would he come out? He'd probably cost Drew, but then that means Orton and Drew are going to continue, and I don't think that's going to be the case. We could see Jey Uso get involved. Jey Uso could come in here and fuck something up and cost Roman the match. Roman's too busy messing around with Jey, and then he turns around, eats a Claymore, and gets pinned. That would work, but I wouldn't want to see it, because then it would make Roman pissed at Jey Uso again, and we just saw 2 pay-per-view matches with those guys. We could see Jimmy show up. I think that's a likely possibility. Jimmy showing up in the match, maybe disguising himself as Jey Uso, only to, find, like they did in the segment on TV a few weeks back, only to reveal it's Jimmy, and then Jey turns up from behind and super kicks Drew, and he goes down while Roman's distracting the referee, and then Roman's able to spear Drew McIntyre and pin him with help from both Usos. I think that's a possibility. But another thing that hit my mind, and I think it's something that fans probably aren't going to be too happy about, because I think we were hoping that they would hold off on this. Last week on Raw, Sheamus gave Drew McIntyre all those presents. They've been playing up their friendship. They've been playing up their history. Obviously, the way WWE operates, all this tells me is that these two guys are going to feud in the future. But a lot of fans were saying, what's the rush with that? Why don't we wait? Why don't we allow a babyface and a heel to be friends for a little while and see how the relationship grows? They got chemistry. They work well together. They know each other well. Their backstage segments have been somewhat entertaining. Let them run with this for a while before you do the inevitable turn. But you could use Sheamus as a way to help Roman win this match, whether it be intentional or unintentional. There is a possibility here. I think that Drew McIntyre is going to eat a bro kick, but maybe it's not with Sheamus turning heel. It might be. I think maybe if you see the Usos show up, Jey, and then maybe Jimmy as well, Sheamus comes out to make the save, but then screws up and accidentally hits McIntyre with a bro kick, allowing Roman to spear him and get the pin. Or Sheamus can just outright turn heel, turning on Drew, bro kicking him, allowing Roman to beat him, and then you're off and running McIntyre versus Sheamus at TLC. It's December. Do you need a big marquee match at a December pay-per-view? No. Drew McIntyre and Sheamus will be fine. Fucking tables match, call it a day. That might be what they're going to do. So I think it's going to be a combination of Usos and Sheamuses getting involved here, and I think that Sheamus is going to cost Drew the match. Just not sure if it's a full-fledged heel turn yet or not. And, the wild card, again, Miz coming out would be fun for pay-per-view perspectives, but, man, you just got to think about who the Miz is. Even a weakened Roman and Drew, to me, would be too strong for the Miz. Even in their weakened state, I think the Miz is more of an opportunist than that. I think the Miz would have to take advantage of a really serious situation where one of these two guys are annihilated, maybe in a non-match scenario where they're just in street clothes and they get put through a table on TV or something, and then Miz comes out. For him to try to capitalize on these two guys, both of them, are twice his size, twice as strong, and would eat him up and shit him out in a half a second. I don't think that it's the right time. I think Miz would be more opportunistic than that. It would have to take something drastic like these two guys killing themselves, or like so much outside interference happening in the match. They're both just completely laid out and unconscious, and then Miz can come in and choose. Assumingly, what does the Miz have to do? If essentially he's got two champions on their backs, does it matter who he pins? What are the rules? I never know the rules. Reminds me of old school when the mom is in the back. What is she doing? I never know what she's doing back there. I never know what the rules are with the briefcase. So if Miz comes out, you're not going to have too many situations where the briefcase holder has a chance to pin both. This is a champion versus champion match. So that creates an interesting possibility. But given the type of briefcase holder that the Miz is, even after a match between these two, I still don't think either one of them would have a minute of trouble beating the Miz. I think if Roman beat Drew and then Miz cashed in, Roman would just beat the Miz too. And then if Drew beat Roman and then Miz cashed in, Drew would just beat Miz too. I think you'd have to capitalize on something serious. But it could happen. It definitely could happen. And then he's champion again. But again, if you did that and you put the belt on the Miz in a cash-in situation, you'd assume that he's probably going to hold the belt for a little while. So if that's the case, why even do the title change with McIntyre and Drew? Unless you wanted to plant the seed for a bigger match down the road between those two guys. Otherwise, you could have just left Orton in there and had Miz come in and cash in on them. Plus, he could pin Orton, making it twice in a row that he's done that to him, which would add intrigue. So I am still voting no on the Miz cash-in. I could be wrong tomorrow, but I'm going to vote no. So just to recap, here's what I've got. I've got SmackDown winning the Dual Battle Royal on the pre-show. I've got Street Profits over New Day. Sami Zayn barely over Bobby Lashley, but then getting killed after the match. Raw winning the women's and men's 5-on-5. Asuka defeating Sasha, and Roman Reigns defeating Drew McIntyre. So that gives SmackDown victories to the Street Profits, Sami Zayn, and Roman Reigns. They win the 3 big matches there. Raw wins both 5-on-5s and the women's match. I think that's a pretty fair balance, right? And then you can give SmackDown the tiebreaker in the pre-show, even though the Battle Royal doesn't really count. That's what I've got. 3-3 with SmackDown getting the extra victory at the Battle Royal, which would be a big improvement from last year when they got their asses handed to them. And I think that's a really good, and it's not only a good balance of, who's winning what matches, but it's a good balance of baby faces and heels. I think I balanced it all pretty well there. So you let me know. You let me know what you think of those predictions there. And that leaves us with The Undertaker, the man of the night. This whole entire pay-per-view is celebrating the 30-year to the day debut of The Undertaker in the WWE. And we've been seeing a lot of network stuff. We've been seeing a lot of on-TV tributes to The Undertaker. And I'm hoping tomorrow they're going to give us a lot of things throughout the show. They did the same thing in 2015. Throughout the show, a lot of Undertaker memories and shit like that. And I'm assuming that we are going to get some sort of an in-ring tribute to The Undertaker. I mentioned the idea of playing his original debut entrance from 1990 all the way around the Thunderdome. There's one big collective jumbotron there, and play the entrance while he stands there in the ring. That might be cool. Is he going to be joined by anybody in the ring? Is he going to have Brother Love in the ring with him? Is he going to have anybody from his past coming out? Are they going to do a deal like with Ric Flair where they all come out to the ramp and they clap for him? Or is he going to have some sort of a confrontation with somebody? Now, about 6 months ago, I pitched an idea of him being in the ring and having a face-to-face confrontation, not a match, but just a face-to-face confrontation with Sting. Maybe, you know, we never got the match, and so maybe the best thing, the consolation prize is maybe giving us just the one moment with the two of them in the same place at the same time, staring each other down. And then I said, maybe you can have whatever chicken shit heels happen to be in the company around that time, like 3MB or something like that, where they come out and they fuck with him, and then together, Sting and The Undertaker collectively beat the shit out of the little pussy heels and send them on their way and have a nice big moment with each other. But feels like that's not going to be the case, because I think Sting isn't really affiliated with WWE anymore. They yanked his merchandise off of WWE Shop. There's some AEW rumors floating around. So the Sting and Undertaker thing might not happen, but that would be cool if Sting just randomly showed up there, you know, and just to show respect to The Undertaker and pay his respects, and you get that moment between the two of them. Or you could do it with somebody else. So if The Undertaker is there and he's going to be joined by any current roster members, is it going to be, I certainly hope it's not to set up a match. A lot of people have been calling out The Fiend. They say The Fiend is going to come out and attack The Undertaker, and maybe he will. Maybe he'll be the one to put him down. And the last time we see The Undertaker, he goes down to The Fiend. I almost think that they might do something different with The Fiend. I mean, The Fiend is kind of a babyface, right? Alexa Bliss, you know, is there. She's doing her thing, and they're a very fun duo in the Funhouse and all of that, and it's a very interesting gimmick, and it's different, and it's unlike anything we've ever seen. I can see The Fiend showing up attacking The Undertaker, but I can also see maybe some sort of like a torch passing taking place. Because if we're thinking about little chicken shit factions in WWE, I think there's one right at the top of the list. Bisquick and Reckoning and all those other guys in Retribution, I think they can hit the ring during The Undertaker's tribute of some kind, whatever he's doing in there. Lights go out, Retribution hits the ring, they surround the ring, they threaten to attack The Undertaker, and then the lights go out again, and The Fiend appears, or maybe Alexa Bliss appears first, followed by The Fiend, and The Undertaker and The Fiend together dispose of Retribution. And either way, it's a torch passing. If you have The Fiend put Taker down, it can be like, that's the end of Taker. He's finally put down for the last time, and that's it. That in and of itself can act as a torch passing. Or you can just have, you know, a respect from one epic gimmick to another, you know, taking care of some heels together, and Undertaker says, okay, all of this is yours now, type of thing. It could be that, or we could see nothing at all. But I think the fact that Retribution isn't booked, The Fiend currently isn't booked, The Fiend could get involved in the title match. He could not. I don't know. You know, he's got apparently a feud on the horizon with Randy Orton. Neither one of these guys are on the show. So you could have Randy Orton as another guy, along with Retribution or without Retribution, come out and say, hey, I want to kill one last legend. You know, you and I had a great rivalry 15 years ago. We had some great matches spanning several pay-per-views. What a notch in the belt in the legacy of Randy Orton is if I put you down on your last night. And then The Fiend comes out and saves The Undertaker from Randy, setting up Randy and The Fiend in the future. So I kind of hope, just for the fan in me, the 30-year fan in me, I don't need to see any other Undertaker matches. If anybody comes out here to attack The Undertaker, you would think that's going to set up a match, and I don't think we want to see a match. We don't need to see a match. We don't need to see a match between The Fiend and Undertaker. We don't need to see that. I saw Bray Wyatt and The Undertaker a few years ago at WrestleMania. It sucked. So we don't need that shit at all. But having a torch passing moment, a nice moment, Undertaker can choke slam somebody. He can throw a couple of punches. I just don't think he needs to have a whole match. So if you have Randy Orton come out or Retribution come out and The Fiend comes out and saves Taker from them, that I think would be a lot more fun. Here's a wild card. When Karrion Kross is healthy, do you think he's going back to NXT? Oh, shit. Or do you think they just have the belt on Balor now and they just run with it? Who's saying Karrion Kross can't come out with that entrance and attack The Undertaker and put him down and break his arm? Talk about launching a guy and saying, oh, I'm here now. Holy crap. So I kind of hope that it's a combination of a really, really nice tribute and something awesome that we didn't see coming. And based on the fact that I watched The Undertaker's debut live as it happened, the fan in me would rather have something lighthearted, or not lighthearted, but something where The Undertaker doesn't get destroyed in any way. So you could have The Fiend or Karrion Kross or some big bad heel come out and kill him, you know, but the fan in me would rather see a nice tribute to The Undertaker where we can truly possibly remember him for the last time, And like I said in the beginning of the podcast, this will be his final step and his final stop on his road to the Hall of Fame. And this year would be perfect year to make him a one-man class and do one Hall of Fame inductee for 2021. And then on the Hall of Fame night, you knock out all of 2020, all that class. And then you put The Undertaker in last all by himself as the lone member of the 2021 class. And that'll be a wrap on the entire saga of The Undertaker. 30 years and 4 months in WWE. I'd be into that. So what do you guys think? What's your ideas for The Undertaker's send-off, or The Undertaker's tribute, I should say? We should never call it a send-off because I don't know if we'll ever truly see the final Undertaker appearance, because even after this, you know, if he wants to make an appearance for a Raw old school or some crazy show they do, he probably will. So you never know. But I'm hoping tomorrow they do something fun, and then whatever they do, where it's placed in the show is very important. You know, if they do something, I kind of hope it's a whole bunch of things throughout the show, and then maybe Undertaker is like the final thing you do. If The Undertaker is the final thing you do, that's where I see something major happening, like Randy Orton showing up, like Retribution showing up, like The Fiend showing up, or maybe some sort of a big swerve or something like that. Maybe The Undertaker turns heel and forms a faction. Who knows? Maybe The Undertaker is in charge of Retribution. Vince didn't let him do the Starcast, and he's been pissed ever since. And he formed Retribution, and he reveals himself to be the higher power. Oh man, we're getting way deep into fantasy booking now, but you know, maybe something fun like that could be done too. But like I said, either way, the fan in me would rather just have a nice, good tribute to The Undertaker where we can remember the 30 years that he's been here, wipe away the tears, and you know, just have a good old reflection on you know, arguably, you know, probably the best career in history of WWE. So hit me with your ideas if you're listening to this later on in the comments below. Let me know what your ideas are right now in the chat. And smash that thumbs up button for me. And I'm going to knock out these super chats, and then I got to peace out. So there you go. Yeah, there's another... Oh, man, Spaz. I didn't even read that one. Let me make sure I didn't miss any others. Nope, I got the Jeff Hardy one. Spaz, for $2 more bucks, is proposing a Miz cash-in and leaves double champ. Boy, he can cash in on both? Are you allowed to do that? Is that legal? Oh, my God. Could you imagine the Miz? Oh, my God. It would be like Jericho beating Rock and Austin in the same night, but it would be the Miz. I beat Roman and Drew in the same night at the same time. We have to listen to that shit for years to come. My God, no thanks. Antoine, thanks for 5 more, dude. Oh, I forgot about Big E in the Battle Royal. Yeah, duh. That serves the same purpose because it does give a SmackDown guy the victory. But I'm only putting Big E in there if he wins. I don't want to see Big E on the kickoff show, but I suppose if he wins, that would be okay. Big E, I almost think that wouldn't even need to and could still get the push, but didn't think about him. But that's a good option. Same Team Raw, Lana Soul Survivor. A lot of people have that. SmackDown, Jay Soul Survivor. Ooh, I like that. Jey Uso on SmackDown. Sasha wins. Roman wins from DQ from Miz Crash, but takes the L. Okay, so you got Roman winning a DQ with some shenanigans. You've got SmackDown. You got that SmackDown team winning? I don't think they're strong enough. You got Sasha winning too. Now, Sasha could, especially if somebody comes out and helps her kick-starting their feud with Asuka on Raw, could be Shayna Baszler turning back up or Nia Jax showing back up in that match to fuck with Asuka. But I'm kind of hoping to see the Rhea Ripley deal on Raw. We'll see. Thanks for 5 more as well from Spaz. Kofi and Woods team up with Truth on Raw. Big E joins Ford and Dawkins on SmackDown. New Day 1 versus New Day 2 at Mania. Oh, man. Again, you're putting Big E, a guy that I have title aspirations for, in a 6-man tag. But to see maybe Big E, you know, move on to another duo that's maybe younger, quicker, maybe he sees more future in. And then Truth joins Kofi and Woods. That would be an interesting team as well. Truth would probably think he's on the Freebirds and have no idea what's going on. Maybe. That would be interesting. 2 more from Antoine. Also, Street Profits win. Forgot that one. Oh, yeah, you did forget that one as well. But you've got Street Profits winning like I do. I just think that's the better option there. I think New Day, as long as they've been together, they can lose 5 matches in a row, and they're still the New Day. Where that's not the same case with the Street Profits, and a win like this would just do wonders for them, I think. Plus, they're so damn good. Especially that Montez. Deshaun, thank you for 2 more bucks, dude. Sheamus won his first WWE title at TLC 2009 versus Cena. I remember that. I don't know why I was thinking it was 2010, but yeah, it's 2009. Well, Cena just fell over, right? Like, and they weren't in the turnbuckle in the corner. Cena just fell through. Table plop. Sheamus won. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, Miz can fail to cash in too. But again, with the Miz, you'd think that he'd be smarter than that. This is not where he would choose to stick his nose in, because he would get his ass kicked. You want a real Cena versus Taker match, not the crap we had a few years ago? Well, Stone Cold, if we got Cena versus Taker now, it would be worse than the crap you got a few years ago. So just be happy you got that. Cena versus Taker. Taker just does not need to wrestle. No more Taker matches. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of ref bumps and interferences. Do we see in the Roman and McIntyre match? That's for sure. It's got to be, you know. I just don't think that's a situation where you just do a clean match, clean finish. There's too much at stake, you know, with the levels of the characters and stuff. Yeah, Fiend attacked Kane, so it kind of wouldn't make sense to help Taker. I'd like to see Kane come out. Kane's another guy that should at least be there in some capacity. But in terms of that not making sense, when has that stopped any but WWE doing anything? They could explain on that away pretty easily, I think. Yeah, and I'm very curious where the... thank you for that, Andrew. Linnell, War Games is December 6th, so that must be a Sunday, as a Sunday after the 2nd. Okay, I did not know that. Appreciate that. Okay, Rhea wins the Rumble and faces Asuka or Charlotte. Bianca wins the Chamber and faces Sasha. I'm fine with that. I'd almost prefer it if it was flipped. I'd rather have Bianca win the Rumble and Rhea win the Chamber. Rhea's a Chamber girl. Look at her. She's covered in silver and chains and spikes and shit. You know, I almost think that's like a match more tailor-made for Ripley. She's already performed really well in a War Games a couple years ago or a year ago. So I think maybe that is fine. I might just flip it. I might have Rhea in the Chamber and Bianca winning the Rumble. Savio is going to be there too. Yeah, I think Undertaker's got a lot of his BSK crew coming in, so it'd be nice to see if Godfather was there, maybe Henry Godwin and Savio and whoever the fuck else is in that. I'd be into that. And where are they going to be? Like, are they going to be in the ring with him? And what kind of Undertaker are we going to see? Are we going to see the Dead Man, or does Mark Calloway, who owns the TikTok channel, come out? I don't know. I mean, there's no guarantee that we're going to see like the Dead Man tomorrow. We might, but he might also be a little bit of Mark as well. So it just depends on what WWE has planned. Do they have this plan to be just a standalone 30-year tribute, which honestly for me would be perfectly fine, or do they want to take advantage of the situation and make something out of it and elevate and boost somebody that's currently on their roster, like a Fiend or like a Karrion Kross or somebody like that? I don't know. Just depends on what they want to do. Either way, I'm probably fine. And if they just went with a straight tribute where all of his, friends are there and they go through his previous opponents and he cuts a nice heartfelt promo and it really feels like, the final send-off aside from Hall of Fame that we're going to get of The Undertaker, I can't complain, especially when something like that lands on the 30th anniversary to the day. You're never going to get a situation like that again. So, what a great way to bookend, your WWE career. November 22nd, 1990 through November 22nd, 2020. Works for me. So, and I even threw out the possibility last week too. Remember, technically The Rock has wrestled Eric Rowan at WrestleMania. You could see something like that. You could see somebody come in just to give Undertaker a 5-second match, just so it goes down in the record books that his final WWE match was on the very same day that he debuted. I'm not ruling that out either, especially if it's Ali or somebody like that, or Slapjack or something comes in the ring, gets in his face. He goes, how about I take you on right now and I make you famous? Ring the bell, boom, choke slam, pin, 1, 2, 3. Undertaker in the record books gets a victory at Survivor Series. I actually wouldn't be opposed to that because I also don't think it would be a slight on AJ. It's not like what he did to Roman where he came back for a run, or it's not like what Flair did to Shawn or anything like that. It's just a quick little thing. It's in the record books for no other reason. And I don't think it diminishes AJ Styles or what his match with The Undertaker meant at WrestleMania. I think it would be more done for fun than anything else, and it would be the one situation where coming out of retirement wouldn't be shitting on the guy you had your last match with, because Taker's already done that to Roman. To do that to AJ would be pretty shitty as well, unless it was a quick little deal. You know, I would probably defend it if they did it, I think, because I'd be cool with it, you know. We shall see. But anyway, I got to get out of here. I have got to go to work. So you guys have a great rest of your night. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Please smash that thumbs up button on your way out the door. And join me tomorrow night immediately after the show. I will have a link to the Survivor Series review up late tonight. And because I got to bolt out of here and go to work, the audio to this podcast will not be up for about 4 or 5 more hours. So just check back on the website. You'll be able to download it, and you can pull it up on the Spotifys and the iTuneses and all that good stuff in just a few hours from now. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and I will catch you tomorrow night immediately following Survivor Series. Y'all be good.